Good evening. I call to order City Council meeting for the evening of Wednesday, February 12th, 2020. And first order of business tonight is going to be the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're going to be led in the pledge tonight by Mr. Paul Evans, who is 35 years retired Air Force out of Hill Air Force Base. If I sound a little emotional, my grandfather was a radioman in the Navy, and Mr. Evans has served working with radios and communication for 35 years with the Air Force. So if you would, please lead us in the pledge. Thank you.
Will the audience please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. Evans, thank you for leading us in the pledge, and thank you for your decades of service to our country and its citizens. Thank you. Tonight we're going to start off the meeting with a few recognitions. We're going to deviate a little bit from the order of the agenda. And this first recognition, I will turn the time over to Mr. Corbin Lee, our CAO, for the recognition for the fire hydrant project.
Thank you. I'm filling in for the mayor a little bit. Can we get the First Lego League team to come up? The mayor met with this incredible group of young people and was very excited to hear about their project that they were doing to better our community. And so he asked if we could have a demonstration or a presentation, a special recognition with the city council. I'd like one of them to explain. This is with the first Lego League. You guys are the, will you remind me your name, team name? The Astro Knights, is that correct? And they saw a problem in our community, and their challenge was to figure out a way to fix this problem in our community. Is there one of you that can explain what you found as a problem and how you solved it? Come.
When the project was first revealed, our team wasn't sure where to start. We talked to the mayor of our city, Derek Burton, and he explained 8 separate problems West Jordan City faces with its public spaces. After some prototyping, our team decided on the problem relating to fire hydrants, which is that snowplows push snow onto fire hydrants so that firefighters can't find hydrants fast enough. And this can cause extra damage and deaths.
After our initial research, we set up an appointment to tour the West Jordan Public Works Department and spent several hours learning about hydrants. We shared with them our idea, and they were very impressed with our concepts and gave us feedback on how we could improve our design. A representative with Mueller, one of the largest U.S. fire hydrant companies, came to one of our meetings to teach us more and hear about our design. We showed him our project ideas and our first prototype. He suggested we meet with Mueller because this was very unique and they might be interested in our design.
It is a really big problem in Utah, especially in smaller cities. Flags are a possible solution, but these can break easily and splinter. Utah moms are constantly calling the fire department to complain about splintered flagpoles and asking they be removed. A GPS system also exists, but workers have to manually input information. So our solution to this problem is using lights.
We're having some difficulties having it work. So this remote switch would be on the fire truck and would activate all the hydrants nearby. We prototyped the solution on a breadboard, then switched over to an access circuit board.
We found out that the top part of the hydrant, the bonnet, is one of the cheapest and easiest parts of the hydrant to replace. This makes our solution cost effective. There's also an empty space in all bonnets for our electronics.
The whole team learned how to solder so we could each help with the project. We took turns on the electronics. We also soldered these really cool necklaces and learned about solar panels and capacitors. We want to eventually add solar panels in a battery pack.
Another smart feature of our bonnet would be the ability for a fire truck to use a wireless signals to triangulate the hydrant's position, even if it were completely buried or if the sun was too strong to see the light. With triangulation, the truck could pull right up to the hydrant aligned with the connection points. For future improvement, we would add solar panels, recessed LED lights, a strong antenna, and a battery pack. We were also thinking we could add sensors that can help tell if there are leaks, frozen pipes, or if the hydrant has been hit by a car. These sensors are similar to other smart hydrants and would help us compete with the current market while adding a new feature with the lights and triangulation. Do you have any questions?
Lots of questions, but I'm sure the answers would go right over our heads. Thank you very much. Mayor Burton.
Well, I can see why you guys won first place. That's wonderful. I would like to invite the council to come down and join you and get a picture of you with the council, and invite the fire chief to come over too, because the fire chief cares about this. While they're cleaning up, if I might, Chair, this group came to me last summer and was looking for some things they could do in West Jordan to do an improvement. And I gave them a whole list of things, and so they selected this out of the list of different problems we have in the city that they wanted to help solve.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mayor. Our second recognition was brought to the council by Councilmember Worthen, so I'll turn the time over to her.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just got to tell you, first of all, you are in the presence of greatness tonight. Seeing those kids here making that difference, our Utah girls tackle football. These ladies are making a huge difference across the country. It's my honor to introduce to the audience, the mayor, the staff and council, the ladies of Utah girls tackle football. If you guys don't mind standing up so they can see who you are. Founded back in 2015, this league is the only girls tackle football league in the United States. It has grown from 50 girls to over 600 expecting this upcoming season. You guys can sit back down if you want to. They welcome girls of all incomes, race, shape, size. All you have to do is have the desire to want to play, and you have a home in this league. This league is currently working on sanctioning girls tackle football in high schools so girls can play just like the boys do. Today we recognize two players from West Jordan. They had the opportunity to go to the 2020 NFL Pro Bowl and play at halftime. The league was invited by the NFL to select 22 of the girls to come and showcase their talents. I'd like to turn the time over to Laura and Mikkel from West Jordan. Laura is from West Jordan High, Mikkel is from Copper Hills High, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their experience.
So we got the opportunity to go and participate in the 2020 Pro Bowl halftime show, and it was so amazing. It was awesome. So I'm glad we got this opportunity to go and participate and have fun and be able to go with girls that are of our same talent and to be able to connect with them throughout the entire league. We got to practice for the Pro Bowl at the Real Salt Lake Indoor Stadium. Brett Gordon provided this for us, and we had to practice from 9 to 11 o'clock at night, sometimes 3 nights a week. And wait, go back. And so before this, we practiced at a church with our team, and then the Real Salt Lake Indoor Stadium. And when we were in Florida, we had practices inside the hotel and at the dock in by the hotel we were staying in. So that was fun. And
Yeah. Yes. So traveling. So it's Friday morning and it's bright and early. So we go and we're still a little tired, but I am still like so excited to go. I could not sleep at all that night. So we get to the airport and we fly to Orlando. And once we get there, we just kind of hang out and like go swimming, and we create a lot of friendships. And I don't think there could have been a more perfect 22 girls that we selected to go. We made such great friends, and yeah.
We also got the opportunity to go and watch the Pro Bowl practice with all of the NFL players that were invited to participate and that were playing. And we were VIP access, so we got to sit up in the bleachers and watch them and learn, or just fangirl how cool this was. And some of our idols were out there practicing, and it was super cool to talk to some of them and have them sign our stuff, or just watch them as they were in their practice.
Okay, so we had a ton of fun time. Whether it's like the pool or even like doing a boardwalk at our hotel, we really had so much fun. And the bottom left corner, that was at the NFL practice, and it was so much fun being able to go out and watching all the pro players practice. And it really helped us girls understand like how much we could put into playing football, and like understanding the effort and time it takes to being a good football player.
We got invited to go to Universal, and so we walked around, and then we had fun there, and we had a lot of bonding time with our new teammates, which made it super fun because everybody just connected and we were all automatically friends. There weren't different cliques and different groups of different people, and we could all just hang out together and talk and joke around, and it was really a fun and positive environment for us to be in, and so I think it was super awesome.
Okay, so performing in the halftime show. To be honest, I can't remember a lot because I was really scared. But it's once in a lifetime opportunity, and I could not be more grateful for this experience. And we had about 8 minutes to perform our best plays and our best talents out. And it was so awesome because after the game, everybody kept coming up and congratulating us, and it was so much fun. And they're like, "Can we take a picture with you?" And I just I did cry. When I walked out, I was bawling. I was so excited because of this experience, and I could not have been more grateful.
All of these girls had great sportsmanship and friendship. It wasn't even like us going against each other and we're enemies trying to prove who's better. It was us being together and having a fun time, just like out in the backyard throwing a ball around. And to be able to put all of our talent and showcase it in front of all of these people that were watching us, those 54,000 people were cheering and screaming for us, and it was really such a cool, uplifting experience for the NFL to allow us to showcase all of our abilities and prove that girls truly are allowed to play football and that they can do it as a sport that they want and should be able to. And the fact that the NFL got us to do that and show people that we can do it was truly awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
To all you ladies and all the ones that went, there were 22 girls, and they're not all here that got to go, and plus there's almost 600 girls in the league. I just want to thank all of you guys. I know the reaction that sometimes you can get being a girl playing football, and I just want to thank you for representing girls everywhere and being an inspiration to them. And if you don't mind, if we can get a couple photos, we'd love to get a picture with Laura and Mikkel first, and then at the other girls that are here, if we can get a group photo after that.
All right, and we have one more recognition this evening, and I will turn it over to Brian Clegg for that one.
Thank you, Council Chair, Council, and Mayor. Tonight, it's my pleasure to present some of the Public Works staff, a group of individuals from our street division who were recently recognized for their work by the Utah chapter. So I have to read this, it's a long Utah chapter of American Concrete Paving Association. I'd ask fellows, when I call your name, come up, please. Lionel Smith, Mick Christofferson, Zachary Rollins, Travis George, and Mark Worthen. So council and mayor, these are street division employees who make up our concrete crew. These 5 gentlemen here cover the entire city, doing concrete repairs, sidewalk replacement, any concrete needs that come at us. However, also, we use these individuals to do much more than concrete. They also do asphalt paving and all the other many tasks that come associated with the public works operation in the street division. As you know, over the holidays, we got a lot of snow. Most of us were at home enjoying our family. These employees were out doing their part to keep the roads safe and passable by performing snow removal. These individuals who make up our concrete crew were recognized again by the Utah chapter of American Concrete Paving Association for their excellence in concrete work, for the work they did on the new Wild West playground. These employees assisted with the demolition of the old playground, the grading of the new playground, and concrete work, ranging from various flat work components of the site, as well as the installation of the entry sign that was approximately 4,000-pound precast concrete. They installed all that. The work was phased in various stages, and these staff members worked with timelines and coordinated with the contractors to keep the project on schedule and make the playground an overall success with all the other individuals helping with that. Although it wasn't the largest nor the most complex project this team has completed, their assistance and coordination assisted in making this amazing new playground a reality. Thanks for allowing me to present these employees to council and their hard work. Thank you. Can we get a picture with these folks?
So not long ago, I had an opportunity to do a ride-along, and when you hear ride-along, you typically think of going out with police or going out with fire. I actually got to go on a ride-along with the concrete crews and go on a ride-along behind the concrete crews and hear a little bit more detail about what they do. And I never realized until that time how much went into it. We stopped right out by Copper Hills High School and spent probably a good 8 minutes or so just looking at the different corners of that intersection on those ADA ramps that you see. All the work that goes into making sure that everything's at the right slope, the right grade, the angles are right, the approach is appropriate. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And Mr. Clegg, thank you very much for bringing them here for the recognition, because there's so many folks in public works that are quietly laboring behind the scenes to make sure that things are safe, but then also with the playground, make sure that they're fun and really make West Jordan a place that you want to have your family. So thank you for bringing in for the recognition. Councilmember Worthen, thank you so much for that recognition as well. of those young women. I couldn't think of a better way to start off the meeting. And Mayor, for bringing the recognition for the youth with the ideas and inventions to try and help elevate public safety. Thank you to everyone. Next up this evening, we will have our communications. We will have the mayor's citizen comments will be before the before the communications. Thank you. And we've got two opportunities to speak tonight. First is through citizen comments, and you can speak about anything you want at that point. But we do also have a couple public hearings. So if you're here to speak for the public hearings, I'd encourage you to wait until that time to come up and speak. However, if you do want to speak about that during citizen comments, you're still welcome to. I have one person that's signed up to speak during citizen comments, so we'll start with them, and Perry Franson, if you would.
Mayor Burton and members of the City Council and the citizens of this great community of West Jordan, I'm Perry Franson. I'm the Commissioner for the Great Salt Lake Council Boy Scouts of America, and with me tonight is our President-elect, Russ Hunsaker, who is one of only 2 father-son teams in the entire United States to have received the Silver Buffalo. And it's nice to be here tonight. Our president, Tim Fenton, was unable to be with us tonight. On behalf of the membership of the Great Salt Lake Council, in number now, membership youth, around 2,400, we're here to thank you. As you know, we've gone through a big transition in the last couple of months. Having gone from about 65,000 youth down to 2,400, and that is building. We have currently 111 units with Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and venturing units. With those changes, we've also lost places where we can hold meetings, such as board meetings. Now, that's not something that youth come to necessarily, but recently we were in need of a board meeting, a place where we could meet, and the place that we had arranged for fell through at the last minute. And so we called the city and asked Mayor Burton if he could help us out, and we are just here to thank you for allowing us on the 23rd of January to come here and use this room for our board meeting, which ended up being a very important board meeting, as you can well imagine. But we're just here to thank you, and it's probably not something that you get a lot of. You may have people here to, rile things up and all of that when there is opposition and the like, but we're here to just thank you so much for allowing us to use your facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. It's rare that people return to say thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council during citizen comments? Okay. Please approach. And as a reminder, you'll have 3 minutes for citizen comments. And if you would, let us know if you're a resident of West Jordan.
Okay. Just real quick, Brett Bergen. I live on 5331 West Laurel Hill Circle. This is just a public concern. The road at 7800 South Airport Road, I know there's construction going on. I've seen 3 almost accidents where you still have the turn lanes that go to the south. I saw one 2 days ago where the truck turned in front of somebody because the lines are painted with turn arrows and the straight arrows. And I think you're gonna have an accident and then you'll be liable because they're on the road. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg, do you have his contact information? Thank you. Anybody else for citizen comments this evening? All right, seeing none, now we'll move on to communications. And we'll start with the mayor's report.
Thank you, Chair McConaughey. I appreciate that. One of the things I want to talk about that is really new that I just learned about today. However, we've been working on it as a city for a couple of weeks. As I was driving around the city at night, I've noticed, and we've had some neighbors mention some streetlights that are out, and I've noticed it in lots of other areas as well. So one time I asked, who is it in the city that goes around and finds the streetlights that are out, gets them reported so we can get them taken care of. And it turns out we didn't have anybody to do that. So I saw Clint, and I talked to him, and I said, could you create something so we could mark the streetlights that are out and get them repaired? I says, I'd like to have it real simple so volunteer groups could do that for us. You know, maybe some Boy Scout units or something like that. Well, Clint got to work on that, and just today, he emailed me an app for it, and I will be sending it out to each of you so you can look at it. It is fantastic. You go, open it up, it shows every streetlight we have in the city. Does anybody know how many streetlights we have in the city?
Do you mean operational or in total?
In total. Soon, that number will be the same. It's over 5,000. So it's close to 6,000. Anyway, so that map shows every one of those on there, and it's real easy to use. I've been playing with it all evening. You pull that up, and you can use it on your phone or on a tablet. And as you go by, you see the street light. You can tap on it and mark whether it's working or not. And if it's not working, it automatically creates a work order and sends it to Public Works. That's slick. That is fantastic. We're going to be seeing more light in the city of West Jordan, and we'll be a city with the light on the hill. Anyway, so that's one great thing, and I just learned about that today, that it is ready. So I'll send you the prototype and try it and see what adjustments we would need to make. Since our last meeting, I've had the opportunity to meet with several people who are helping me understand my role as the mayor. I met with Mayor Mendenhall. We had a fantastic discussion. I also had an opportunity to meet with Mayor Wilson from Salt Lake County. And that was a very informative meeting. Not only did I learn many things from her, but she learned a lot about West Jordan. And she has agreed that after the session is over, she would like to take a tour of West Jordan and see what West Jordan looks like and find out some of the needs and strengths that we have in our city, so she can work with those. I've attended another Jordan River Commission meeting, and I have spent a lot of time up at the Capitol. I've been enjoying that. Lots of people are meeting up there. Some of you may have seen the newspaper article where I met up there with the Natural Resources Committee to seek for some appropriations for our Big Bend on the river. We haven't heard yet whether we'll be getting those appropriations or not, but I'll be following up on that, and I'll let you know as soon as I know something. We'll keep an eye on that. I also have been attending some of the meetings with the Utah League of Cities and Towns, their LPC meeting. I know that Councilman Jacob attended online. He even asked some questions and responded that way, so we're making some good progress there. And earlier today, I attended the Southwest Mayor's meeting. That was held up at the Capitol today. We had several legislators there, and that was a very productive and influential meeting, and it helped some of our legislators understand the needs we have in the southwest part of this valley and how our growth situation varies from others. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come from that. I have a card that I just received today. I'm not going to read the whole card, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. So this was written to me and to the police chief. It talks about a lady who lives on 90th South. She says she was out shoveling her snow. It's an elderly lady. And she noticed a black pickup truck pulled up. Then she looked over and saw it was police. She wasn't sure what it was. He got out and came over and helped shovel her snow. He continued to do it till it was gone all the way up to the ramp. They had a ramp to get there because she was older and elderly. He said he would stay and help with the snow until he got another call. He didn't get another call. So anyway, to make a short story long, she found out his name is Joe. So Officer Joe stopped and helped shovel her snow. I think that deserves some recognition. So those are some things that have happened. And I'm looking forward to our following week. I'm enjoying living up at the Capitol and find that they have lots of food, and I am not going hungry.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lee.
Just one quick thing. A couple of weeks ago, Council, we discussed with you possible changes to the organization chart in the city throughout many of the departments. we made those changes official this week. They were rolled out in cabinet on Tuesday and sent to the city as a whole this morning. You should have seen an email that included the org chart. If you have any questions or if you didn't receive that email, please let me know. Any questions about the reporting relationships of the different divisions within the departments also, please feel free to visit with me anytime.
Thank you. Next up, we'll go with Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Council. The view is different down here, but I'm excited to be able to work with you pending what you decide on 7D. And but we have nothing to report. We're just excited to be able to help you organize the office and move the legislative branch forward.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to council comments, and we'll start with Councilmember Worthen.
I just want to say that nights like tonight are probably the funnest part of this job, and it is a job I have found. Although I've been volunteering for longer than I can remember for the city and being involved in parks and different things, there's a lot that goes into this, and I have to say for the council members that have been up here, good job. There's a lot of reading, there's a lot of researching, there's a lot of questions, and I appreciate all of you and all of your time and efforts and caring about the city as much as you do and putting that time into this. As you also know, I've been sick almost for the good part of January coming into February, and I want to thank you all for your well wishes of getting better, and I'm on the road to doing that. But really, the work that goes in to behind the scenes from these people that are sitting up here is a lot, and I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you on that. And then, Brian, I'm seriously disappointed the guys left. I wanted to say, you guys rock. Bad dad joke. Anyway, that's all I have.
You didn't really even serve with Mayor Burton, and it rubbed off on you, apparently. It's Zach, okay. I know there's been a lot on Facebook about lighting by tracks, and I know that some work has been done on it. I just want to encourage the mayor's office to ensure that we figure out who is responsible for lighting, and that we get the lighting there, and that we get the weeds into compliance, and then the rest I will save for remarks.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of things. I've been a little bit busy since our last meeting. I attended the first. Oh, and I wanted to say before I forget, I wanted to tell the mayor that streetlight app. It sounds like a bright idea. I hope it works out well. Come on, you guys miss him.
If the lights are out, I think we would be delighted.
Well, the lights may be on, but nobody may be home. But anyway, I was privileged last Friday to go up to the legislature because our representative for my area, Representative Coleman, called me and asked me if I would be interested in offering the opening prayer, the invocation, I believe is the official term, for the House of Representatives on Friday. So that was fun, and that was an honor to be able to do that. Mayor Burton was right behind me. He led the chamber in the Pledge of Allegiance. So that was pretty cool. Have the opportunity to do that. I also attended the first meeting of the year for the Joint Policy Advisory Committee for Wasatch Front Regional Council. As a new member of that committee, nothing really exciting happened in that meeting, but they did introduce us to their website, or to the website for the Unified Transportation Plan, which is unifiedplan.org. I suggest, checking that out. That's it's the Unified Transportation Plan for the entire state. And the Joint Policy Committee that I'm on advises Wasatch Front for the Wasatch Front Regional Council's part of that plan. So it goes out till 2050 and beyond. It talks about what's funded, what's not funded, all the different highway projects, regional impacts, and things like that. I highly recommend taking a look at it and going through it. And if you have any comments or questions or things that you'd like to see changed or improved, let me know, and I will take that back to that committee. I'm happy to do that. As Mayor Burton said, I've also been attending the Legislative Policy Committee meetings for ULCT. Lots of interesting bills. Actually, Tawny's going to update us on those later, so I'm going to let her, not steal her thunder, on a few of those more interesting bills. So it's been busy, but it's been fun, and we're only getting started. We're only 2.5 weeks into the session, so it's going well.
Councilmember Green.
First off, we never, thanks to the mayor for celebrating that success with Officer Jones. We also need to recognize the fire department. We got an email the other day from a Bluffdale resident whose grandmother, well, it was grandmother, right? It was grandmother had a problem at Walmart or something, and our firefighters were able to help her. They actually bought her some stuff to get her blood sugar out of their own pocket. They took her home, and as I understand it, they helped put the groceries away. So a lot of times we always focus on the negative, and we should focus on the positive, particularly when we have firefighters like that. Last but not least, if you didn't know, I'm sure you know today's February 12th. But if you're not a history buff, today is the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. Wow. I will have to tell you that one of my most favorite places on earth to visit is the Lincoln Memorial at 2 o'clock in the morning at the end of that, at where it sits, standing on those stairs. There's nothing better than that. And if you've never done it, you need to go to DC and you need to go stand on those stairs at 2 o'clock in the morning, particularly when you're standing there and you can face out towards the Washington Monument, and you know that Lincoln's behind watching you, and you're standing in the same place that Martin Luther King gave the I Had a Dream speech. So with that, I will leave my last comments with this. With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
Chair McConaughey. There we go. First of all, I wanted to thank Alan Anderson for the work that he's done over the past week and a half. We basically hired Alan and said, go to work. And he went to work, and I don't know if he knew exactly what he was supposed to do, but he got in there and he did it. And he did a great job for us while our council director, David Brickey, was gone. And so thank you, Alan, for all the hard work you've done to help us get going. It's been I'd say kind of a rough transition, because the city really didn't know what was going to happen when we split up the mayor's office and the council office. And the mayor's office needs to do what they need to do to get the city running, and the council office needs to get up and going as well. So I want to thank those that have put their hard work into it. And I also wanted to thank Tangi Sloan as well. Tangi isn't actually part of our council office, but she fills in admirably and helps us out on a daily basis. And I'm grateful for all the work that you've done, and thank you for all that. My last thing is I wanted to mirror what Councilmember Whitelock had said concerning the lighting over by the Novi buildings and over by the track station. I've seen a lot of back and forth of, who owns the sidewalk, who owns the street, who puts the lights in. Is it UTA? Is it the city? I think we have a great opportunity here as a city, whether that's the council asking or if it's the mayor's office and the city staff working on this, of making something right that probably hasn't been looked at over the past few years. And I don't want to put any fault on anybody in past city staff or past city councils, but this time we have an opportunity to really dig in and put up some lights and not say it's someone else's job. And I think we can do that, and it's possible. There are citizens that have asked us to do stuff, and there have been issues over in that area, and I think it shows a great deal of gratitude from us as a city to give back to our citizens when they ask for something pretty simple as putting up lights where it's dark, especially whether it's for tracks, people using tracks, or if it's for the children that are using that sidewalk to go to school every morning in the dark. So thank you, Councilmember Whitelight, for bringing that up, and I mirror your statement that it is something important to me as a citizen. I don't use that area, but I know that a lot of people do, and they'll be very appreciative if we are able to move forward on that and not pass the buck to someone else. Thank you.
Councilmember Pack.
I'm grateful for our various backgrounds because we can look at issues from different standpoints, and part of mine is from education and youth, so I'm grateful that we had the wonderful youth presentation today, and wow, the strength of our youth with that fire hydrant brainstorming, incredible. And I went through 3 Eagle Scouts in our family, so I'm grateful that we had that presentation as well, and that we can help other worthwhile organizations with amenities and facilities. And got me thinking too, just prior to this meeting, I was at Copper Hills High School feeding 170 of our staff and teachers and administration. I'm currently the PTA president there and serve on the community council, as well as the feeder school community council at West Hills Middle. And I agree, there's so much good that goes on, and whether it's citizens residing in West Jordan or the employees and staff that are helping to teach and train our growing generation here in West Jordan, I'm grateful to be associated with them. I've been networking with administration at West Jordan High as well, just to get a comprehensive overview from counselors, administration, teachers, even student body officers, to see the issues that are affecting our youth. And of course, there's truancy and abuse and depression and anxiety and vaping, and any community would deal with that, but I'm grateful to report that we have some wonderful, competent professionals in our schools teaching our youth and leading teams and organizations and in the community, as we saw here with football tonight. So I'll continue to report on what I'm noticing in our educational system. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, this is Mel Burton. Would you like me to answer the lighting situation over the tracks area at this time?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So after I learned about that incident, I went and looked at that. That happened on a Friday. And on Monday, I met with one of the UTA board members. Actually, I met with the UTA board members, everyone's 4 different times on this. And there was some confusion in that area that the sidewalk in question is actually owned by UTA. However, there is an easement on there where it's been provided to us as the city to maintain that. And there's been some confusion in this city on that, but we have that straightened out now. So our public works are aware of that, and they will be taking care of plowing and making sure that sidewalk is accessible. The sidewalk is UTA's, but we're responsible to take care of it. Now, everything from that point on, UTA takes care of, or they're supposed to, and we'll be working with them to keep the weeds under control. As for the lighting, there's lighting that's beyond the station itself. Once you get out on that street, that is all the responsibility of the city. There are some poles there that are owned by Rocky Mountain Power, and it used to be that Rocky Mountain Power maintained those, but they don't anymore. That's on the city. So the city has gone out there and repaired those lights, and those lights are presently working. There were some other lights down closer to the charter school. Those have been repaired. In fact, Public Works brought to me today a piece of wire that was underground that they had to locate and dig up that had corroded and burned and caused the lights to quit working. So it wasn't a burned out light bulb, it was a bad underground line that they repaired. So those are all now working. We've instructed Public Works to get us some costs for adding lights to there. There's a lot to adding a light. It's not just putting in the light, but it's actually running a line to it underground, which is quite involved. I've had jobs where people have asked me for prices for parking lot lights, and they're usually astonished when they find out what it costs because they're quite labor intensive. But anyway, so we're working on that, and we've also contacted the police department. They're working on crime statistics to compare that station with other stations throughout the city to see what the situation is like. So we're looking on that, and we should be able to have some information on that soon, where we can have the information to make wise decisions. But we know who is responsible for what now, and UTA has been real good to work with us on that and get back to us. Like I mentioned, I had 4 different visits with them over this past week, so I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Mayor. And then I had 2 items to report back. Number 1 was going to be echoing the comments about the lighting, so thank you, Mayor, for addressing that. The only thing different that I was going to bring up was a few councils back, Mr. Stoker had brought to us the lighting map that showed which lights were owned by the city that we've gone through and we've upgraded to LED. We had also notated which were owned by Rocky Mountain Power and which were owned by UDOT. This was back when we issued, I think it was what, $7 million bond or something like that was used partially for park improvements, partially for street lights. And then the next part of the plan was to go and work with UDOT and Rocky Mountain Power to acquire the rest of those lights. So I'm glad to hear that UTA lights have been added to that list as well, and anxious to hear how we can proceed to get those taken care of so we can start to backfill those dark areas. The other item I wanted to bring up, you've already received an email from me, but Councilmember Green and I had the privilege of responding to the invitation from the mayor to sit in his budget meeting on January 31st. We appreciate him letting us listen in, and you've got the notes from that, so if there's any questions, feel free to let us know. Moving on the agenda, we've got 2 public hearings for this evening. And this will be a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. Not terribly different, just a little bit different. What we're going to do is, instead of staff presenting on behalf of the applicant will present what they're requesting, and they'll have up to 8 minutes to do that. Now, the timer that we normally have for citizen comments, you're not going to see that for the entire time. You don't have to use all 8 minutes, but it will come up when you're down to 3 minutes left so that you can kind of pace things out. So the applicant will be given 8 minutes to present, and then staff will have an opportunity to follow up with any factual information that they need, as well as any recommendations, anything further that staff feels pertinent for the council to hear that may or may not be included in the packet. After that, the council will ask any clarifying questions that are necessary, and then we'll open up the public hearing. The public will have 3 minutes to speak if you're speaking as an individual, 5 minutes if you're speaking on behalf of a group. And then after the public hearing, the applicant will have 3 minutes to respond to anything that came up during the public hearing. Since they're the ones making the request, they'll be able to have an opportunity to respond to anything. One other thing that I want to point out, if you've got a printed copy of the agenda, let me see if I can scroll up and find it. In the citizen comments section, this also applies to the public hearings. The last line says, "The council requires that citizens help maintain the decorum of the meeting by not applauding or booing, and by turning off all electronic devices, not engaging in verbal attacks against others, or being disrespectful during the proceedings at the meeting." Really, we want to be able to move as quickly and efficiently as possible and make sure everybody's been heard. We recognize that somebody may be at the podium speaking with something that you're in agreement with. Feel free to raise your hand if you're in agreement. You don't necessarily need to clap. It gives the council a good signal if you're in favor. And there are also folks who may want their voice to be heard figuratively and not want to actually come up to the podium. So by doing this, it allows hopefully a little bit more efficiency, and not everybody feels like they're obligated to speak, but their voice can still be heard. So with that, I'll open up our first public hearing. This is to receive public input and consideration for adoption of Ordinance 20-01. This is a general plan land use map amendment for 10.02 acres from very low density residential to low density residential, and rezone from RR1D to, which is rural residential 1 acre minimum lots, to R112, single family residential 12,000 square foot lot minimums. And RR20F, rural residential 20,000 square foot minimum lots, and Peterson Development is the applicant. So we will turn it over to the representative from Peterson.
Mayor Burton and members of the City Council, I appreciate the time to stand here before you tonight. We have stood up here before. On one occasion, and let me back up. before I get into that. As you know, I work with Peterson Development. We're a real estate developer, and we've done quite a bit here in West Jordan City. I think it's fair to say we've developed over 1,000 lots in this city, and there's a decent chance someone in this room is living in a home that is in a lot that we developed. It's an interesting situation right now in our market, as I think you are all aware. The values of properties and the ability to get into a home and a place to live seems to be ever escalating, and that's good in a lot of ways. It is tougher for those looking to move to this valley or those just starting households and needing to find a place to live. So we as developers, we try. A lot of what we do is trying to help ease that situation. I've talked about affordability. There's a few different levers to pull to try and help with affordability, to help our kids get married, hopefully someday, and form households and move out on their own. One of those is to build more units, is to have more lots, more availability. That does help to ease the pressure on prices. It's simple supply and demand. And so we feel we are trying to do our part to help with affordability in this valley. A few years ago, we were approached by a property owner, David Barber, and he's been talking. I've known him for, I think, 15 or 20 years, since we have developed a number of lots in his close around him. And he's been approaching us for many years, asking if we would be interested in helping him with his acreage. He owns a home on 10 acres, and he was interested in selling about 8.5 acres of that. And so we didn't see a way forward with it for some time, mainly because of the cost of the land and some other issues. But we have entered into a partnership with him to try and help him out with his sell his property, and helps us in providing more homes and lots for people to live in. As we talk about this property and about density, we are very accustomed to these type of settings and requesting rezones and plat approvals and subdivisions. This property itself, it is pretty straightforward. We are requesting a change from very low density residential to low density residential, which is not something we are too used to doing. Usually we are trying to get to three units to the acre, or 4 or 5, sometimes 15 to 18. And more you see that with the scarcity of land, developers are needing to ask for more density and to help with affordability. So this has been a little bit of an experience that we are not as used to. The opposition to us asking for low density residential, which is really less than 2 units to the acre. As you can see in your packet, this is addressing a 10-acre parcel. Nothing is set in stone. This is all just rezoned, so it's preliminary, but we expect from a concept standpoint that there might be 17 to 18 lots on this. So that you do the simple math, and that is about 1.9 units to the acre. Something to keep in mind. There are a few mitigating issues with this, as you know. We've stood here before the council before. I'm going to give a little bit of history, additional history. We went to Planning Commission with an initial concept of all third-acre lots, roughly, and we did not get a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on that. We then went to City Council last fall, and there was some issues, of course, with the negative recommendation forwarded from the Planning Commission. We held a public meeting for I think 3+ hours at a model home we have out just a few blocks from the area to solicit input and talk to neighbors to hear their concerns. We did go back to the drawing boards since then, and listening to those neighbors and to concerns voiced by staff and the council, we went back and we modified our request to go from, instead of just one zone, we now have 2 different zones we're requesting. Half-acre lots with horse property on the east edge, which is abutting other horse properties. That is something new to us. We have not sold or developed horse property before, so it was a little bit of a leap and new territory for us, but we are open to doing that. And then we went back, upon the recommendation by the City Council, went back to Planning Commission in January and showed this to them, and things were completely reversed, and we got a strong 6-1 vote in favor of this from the Planning Commission, which I think will help you all in your minds. In closing, I just want to kind of make sure we all understand this about what, as I see it, is being considered tonight. As we request this rezone tonight, it is what we're asking you to consider is a rezone, like I said, from one very low density residential to low density residential. One thing you are not deciding tonight, you are not set to vote on whether to change the 5490 West Roadway, which I'm sure you are aware of. You are not set to change anything with that for it to become a public right-of-way. There will not, by virtue of a potential approval tonight, that will not become a road filled with traffic and speeding, people driving through there. We just want to put this on a shelf, the rezone. This is all we are asking for tonight. There's still many steps forward if you are to approve tonight, where we can discuss solutions and a way to figure out this road issue, this private road, 5490 in the Jordan HOA. There are still many steps ahead, and we can work with the staff in the city and the homeowners out there to come up with an amenable solution, hopefully. If not, we will completely understand, and we will go away from this application if we can't come up with a solution with the road, with the residents there and the city, because we do know the city has it in their stated goals for this to become a public road. So I just want you to keep that in mind. It is the only thing you're voting on tonight is a rezone. There's still many levers to pull and to control what can or cannot be done by way of a roadway of 5490 West. So thank you for your time, and I'm here for any questions as well.
Thank you. Are there any, are there any questions for the applicant at this point? All right, thank you. Is there anything that staff would like to add? Okay. Then, Scott. Mr. Langford.
Just wanted to confirm that the council has a lot of discretion with this item, and what the applicant just mentioned is accurate. If the council were to move this forward and adopt the rezone, before a subdivision plat could be recorded, the whole issue with 5490 would have to be resolved. The city staff has been extremely clear that in order to provide emergency services to even one lot 101, for example, would have to have a connection via a public road from this development to 5490 in order to meet the 4-minute response time. So just wanted to make that very clear that the plat would not be allowed per our subdivision ordinance and other city codes if this were to be approved. Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions for staff?
I have one.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you. I almost said thank you, Mayor. 4 years of habits die hard. I'm just going back to the agenda here really quick. Why is it changing from very low density residential to low density residential if the overall project density is less than 2 units per acre, which is the maximum for very low density residential? The future land use map, I'm just wondering why we need that change.
That is, because by ordinance, we require, let me see if it has one, no. It requires the different zones to correspond with a different land use map category. So very low density is up to 2 units per acre. And an R112, as you see there, that is a low density designation. The RR is a very low density designation, and that's just to be consistent with the general plan.
Okay. Okay, so if we're looking at the project as a whole under some sort of, say, performance-based zone or planned zone or whatever, the whole project could stay
Absolutely,
very
yes.
low
yes.
density, because it is a very low density project when taken as a whole.
Overall, yeah,
Okay,
but
that's-
it's 2 different zones
Right.
on the same project, so.
Right. The application is to keep that eastern R20 part as very low density then, because
Yes.
to coincide with the code? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the clarification I needed, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? All right, then I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. As I mentioned, 3 minutes per person. If you're speaking on behalf of the group, please let me know at the start of your comments, and you'll be allowed up to 5. I've only got 1 person so far, so we will start with them. Mr. Evans, please come to the podium.
Thank you for hearing my comments. I'd like to comment I'm against the rezoning, since the project currently is what the residents call on a private road, which is owned mostly by the residents that reside on that road. There's only 3 places for people to get in and out of that new subdivision. That would be on 70th South, if the private road people don't put up the barrier again, and 7800 South. The traffic currently and there is a road being developed into the turnabout off 5600 West. Other than that, they have very limited access going east and west, since the property is buffeted by all the current homeowners' backyard going east. So that means the traffic will be put out again in front of Mountain Shadows Elementary. 70th South right now doesn't accommodate the traffic all along that. I've witnessed, as I stood there on the corner of Mountain Shadows, watch cars blow through the crossing guards. I watched a crossing guard jump out in front of a car to save 2 children as a car blew through the stop sign and into her crossing lane. Then the driver rolled down his window, yelled explicities, which I don't want to say here in the council, and then waved a finger at her and continued on as soon as the children were out of the way. I've watched cars speed through again that same 4-way stop and not stop for Jordan School District buses. So you're going to be putting a bunch of residents that have very little access out on 2 roads that can't handle the traffic right now, okay? And I want to reiterate Council Green's response to a question that was given to him at a West Jordan Exchange Club, where one of the club members said, why is you're building all the buildings along 40th West? It can't handle the traffic. His response was, well, that was prior councils and we can't do anything about it. Well, this is something that you can do about it and keep it zoned the way it is. Thank you very much for my comments.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak during this public hearing? Okay. Please approach the dais. And since you haven't, since I don't have a form from you in advance, if you would please state your name and let us know if you're a West Jordan resident or if there's a different relationship with the city. Thank
I'm
you.
happy to. My name is Joan Cahoon, and I lived at 7333 South, 5490 West, which is on the north edge of this development. Now, the master plan has this very low density, which means it's basically agricultural land. And that's what Mr. Barber is presently using this land for. He's on Greenbelt, he has sharecropping going on, and most of the land in the area is that same thing. We have kind of built a barrier between the two small subdivisions that come from 7800 South, and there's only two houses that cross over that border a little bit. So if we make that the border where it's subdivisions and then it begins the farmland, and this is left zone very low density, then it would make more sense to the master plan. Now, Mr. Barber has not lived in this house for over a year, and he has not been president of this association since 1997. He doesn't know what the people want. He hasn't asked us. He hasn't come to meetings. I assume Mr. Peterson has communicated with him what it is that we as an association would like to have happen. But for the most part, the people there like the private road. We don't like sidewalks. We don't want gutters. We don't want all of those big lights out in the front of our houses shining. We like the way it is. And with this, then opens up a floodgate of people then, well, they did it, so why can't we? So let's just keep putting subdivisions on 5-acre lots and march on down the road till we get to 70th South, which absolutely makes no sense to me or any of the people who live there. So I think you should vote no on this rezoning and let them either do half acres through the whole thing or nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Mr. Burt.
My name is Spencer Burt. I live on 5396 West, 7530 South in West Jordan. Been a resident of that area for 19 years. Actually, I live just to the south now of what would be lot 101. Just moved into the new development there of half-acre lots. And there is a demand in West Jordan for half-acre lots. In the two previous developments, the half-acre lots were the first lots that sold. There aren't very many options in West Jordan for those size of lots, and there are people that want to stay in that new development of 21 homes. There were over 13 neighbors from West Jordan that wanted to grow home size as well as the lot size. And I've been to every one of these meetings, and the concern is we're not meeting the zoning, right, for the fire zones, and we don't have a second access. So why would we rezone something when we haven't met all the requirements of fire zone and an access? I think those things should be required first, that we have the access for the development to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Mr. Bowler.
Mayor, council, staff, grateful to be here tonight. This is my first time at the podium, so I may be a little nervous, but
Do you mean first time tonight? Sorry.
A point I'd like to make that to me is logical and makes sense, and as you know, I've been involved in development for many years. By the way, I am a citizen of West Jordan. When I go forward with a proposed development, one of the first steps that I do, and I think is necessary, is to get some type of contract arrangement with the landowner and get his permission, authorization to purchase the property and to proceed with a development proposal. Otherwise, I'm proposing to develop property that I don't have a right to do. And as I look at this, and I heard clearly what Ryan Peterson said about the rezone, it appears to me that for this piece of property to be presented as potential development, that there's a missing link right up front, and that is that there is neighboring property that would be, if it were to go forward and be approved, would need to be part of the development. And at this point, there's no contractual arrangement for additional property, neighboring property, to be part of the development. Therefore, there's, in essence, a proposal to develop property that's not under contract. And so I would suggest to the council that that be considered, and that there would even be a beginning step of rezoning until such time as those initial steps have been completed to bring it before the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I,
Councilmember Green.
may need to suspend the rules here, but I'd like to know what piece of property you're referring to. Can I ask that
I
question?
believe he's referring to the private road.
Are you talking about the road itself or another piece of property, Randy? Okay.
Who else would like to speak? Mr. Bowler.
Good evening. It's also my first time at the podium. My name is Shane Bowler. I live at 7402 South, 5490 West. My property is directly west of the proposed property tonight. My concern certainly is over access because it would be my property that would take up the private road is owned to the center line, to the middle of the road. So I own to that center line. It would be me that has to give up that property in order to give way for this subdivision to access on 5490 West. That's a concern for me in many ways. I agree with what has been said about it. In addition to that, it is my opinion that this is an inappropriate zone on the R112F. And the reason for that is because there are animal rights adjacent to it on the east, on the north, and most especially on the west, as it is zoned agricultural. There are no animal rights on the R112F, which is a major concern of mine because it would be nearly surrounded by animal rights. It would be a violation, I feel, of my rights as a property owner to have somebody sandwiched in the middle and understandably upset by what's going on around if they didn't buy into animal rights. So I feel like that is somewhat of a spot zone. It's not an appropriate zone for that space. I do appreciate that we've had opportunity to meet with Peterson. As I have brought up this issue before, the answer was that the roadway 5490 itself would act as a buffer. I don't believe that's an adequate buffer. It's a small private road, and in my experience, roadways don't buffer smells. They tend to go right across the road. So that's an issue for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak tonight? Brett.
I can't say this is my first time. I was already up here. I'm Brett Bergen, 5331 West Laurel Hill Circle. I'm in the very corner of the proposed development on the east side of that. So just to give you a little background, on the east side is acre lots, then it borders on the northeast corner as half-acre lots. To the north is 5-acre lots, to the west is 5-acre lots, and the two adjoining lots are half acres. My proposal is half acres all the way through with horse rights so that we can keep consistent. This is a very unique development. It's not like the other ones to the south, because the ones to the south were already in a neighborhood, so you could do quarters and thirds and halves and what have you, but where you're completely surrounded by agricultural land, my opinion would be to do half acres with the horse property and keep it all consistent with everything that's around it so that we don't lose the farm that's there. I'd like to keep that around. I enjoy that. That's my 2 cents. My other problem is the access right now. We're kind of putting the cart before the horse, where we're rezoning something that we don't have adequate, I guess, access to, because we have a private road that goes out on the west corner there, on the northwest corner. So my vote is, if it gets rezoned, that it would be all half-acre lots to keep it consistent with everything around it. Again, the access point would be something before we can move forward with anything else. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak this evening? All right, if there's nobody else, then I would invite Mr. Peterson back up if you would like to speak for, as mentioned, you don't have to, but if you'd like to speak to anything that came up during the citizen comments, you can have up to 3 minutes to do so.
While he's coming up, we had several emails that came in to the council, and we need to include those as part of the record, so I'll just make that recommendation that we include those as part of the record.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. I would highlight the point. At this point, we are not proposing anything beyond the rezone. We are not developing the property. That would come later. And at that point, a lot of these concerns can certainly be addressed. But at this point, we are just rezoning the property. There's no implicit assumption or guarantee of anything or expectation. We are just rezoning at this stage. So if I could just ask you again to narrowly focus on the rezone. There are many steps yet. There's a lot of wood to be chopped, so to speak, before this gets anywhere to a change of this roadway or actual physical subdivision plat is getting recorded. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'll close the public hearing and return the conversation to the council for discussion and deliberation. Councilmember Whitelock.
We received a letter from an attorney representing the HOA, and while Mr. Wall sent us something, it didn't come till 5:15. Our meeting started at 5:30. So I have no idea what was in that, and I would like to kind of hear from legal counsel what's up.
Sorry about the late delivery. I wasn't asked to write that until late this afternoon. I wrote the email because it was a private email to you as the client, and if you'd like to talk about it, I'm happy to do that offline.
I would like to hear before I am asked to vote what our attorney has to say. Is that possible, Chair, to have a 10-minute closed session or however long he thinks it'll take? I think it's pertinent.
If you're making the motion, Mr. Wall.
I think the one thing I can say is that what you heard from Mr. Langford and from the applicant is true, and that is that assuming the code does require the right-of-way issues to be resolved before the plat can be recorded, which every code I've read in the cities I've represented requires. Apparently ours does too, per Mr. Langford. Even if you approve the rezone tonight, that still has to happen, or else the plat cannot be recorded and development can't occur on the property.
So then if we voted to rezone, and it can't do that though, it retains that zoning, right?
Yes, it does, unless the zone is changed again.
Do you want to recess? Do you want to recess so you can talk to him a little bit more?
I think we should all hear what he has to say personally. At this point, he's our attorney. I think that, I don't know, maybe all of you read his letter, but I didn't. And I think we should hear what legal has to say before we take action. But so can I give a motion?
Absolutely.
I move that we go into closed session for the purpose of hearing from our attorney in regards to agenda item 6A concerning land use, and that we limit it to, what do you want, Chair?
Motion.
15 minutes.
I'm just going to tell him, Mr. Chair, there is no threatened litigation on this matter, and so it's not a proper discussion for a formal closed meeting. That's why I sent an attorney-client privileged email.
Okay, then I withdraw that motion, and I ask that we recess for 5 minutes.
I'll second the motion for a 5-minute recess.
Any conversation to the motion?
One comment, Mr. Chair, I'm okay with that, but don't more than 3 if you come and talk to me.
I would suggest 10 minutes might be more appropriate to also allow for a comfort break if needed. But I'd be supportive of 5 if that's what you'd like to remain with.
I'm amenable to changing it to 10.
10's good.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll recess for 10 minutes and reconvene at, I'll round up, 8:35. All right, I will reconvene the meeting now that our recess has expired and return to the council for conversation regarding public hearing 6A. So comments, discussion, or a motion from the council.
All right,
Councilmember Green.
I'm going to start. I'm going to tell you that I think that the concept of the rezone is not bad. I will also tell you that I was on the planning commission the first time that voted against this 7-0. They made some changes, and most of them have been good. But let me tell you where I have a problem. Let me go down my list. First off, I'm going to tell you the road issue I have a problem with. I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think that someday in the future, those lots along 5490 are going to be redeveloped or developed in a different manner. I can see bowlers, particularly on the north side, decide to sell the property and develop it out. The ones that are out by closer to 70th. I can see that. But are we making the decision too early to rezone when we don't know, when we can't look into the future? One of the problems that I have is that when it talks, when the application was submitted to the city, it says property owner Barber, but the application doesn't address that the easement that Jordan Highlands has on the property also runs on Barber's property. Barber's property is part of that Jordan Highlands HOA, the way I understand it, and that easement should have been addressed in the initial application. There are, I counted some 35 property owners along 5490, and based on the number of hands that I saw, there's probably about 35 hands that went up that own that street. I think that what's happening here is that we are going to be put into a situation at some point in time, because it's never happened in the history of West Jordan City, we are going to be put into a situation where somebody's going to say, we've got to have that, you've given us the entitlement, we've got to be able to move on this development. Unless Peterson Development's willing to sit on this property for 25 years with this zoning, I just think we're putting, because it's an agricultural thing, we are putting the cart before the horse. When the property owners want to sell, and the HOA wants to sell the easement, and the property owners want to make this a private, or make it a public street, I think we can address rezones for everybody. What I'm not comfortable with is being put in a situation where now somebody says, oh, West Jordan City, use your power of eminent domain over the HOA and the 35 property owners to build this 5490. I don't want to put that money from West Jordan City, and I'm not willing to even say I want eminent domain to go down that road, and there's no way, no how. But I think there will be some pressure put on us to do that, and I'm going to state right up front that no, that's not going to happen. I think that and because of the way, if we rezone it, the other steps in this process become more administrative. The city has less latitude to deal with those issues than we can deal with them tonight. I'm just not comfortable giving the entitlement 10, 20, I don't have a crystal ball, but based on what I've seen from the residents, they're not going to be comfortable selling the right-of-way on that piece of road, and who's going to build it.
and maintain it, it'd be us, but I'm not willing to buy that right now, and I'm sure it looks like that the citizens aren't willing to sell it in the next 2 to 3, 5 years. And without a crystal ball, giving an entitlement to a piece of property that may be 10, 15, 12, whatever years down the road when development hits this part of the city, who knows? We may have a whole different thing, and we've given an entitlement to something that doesn't even fit anymore in the city. So that's where I stand, and I think someday, you know, if you look in your crystal ball, someday when my grandkids sitting up on the dais here, they may be doing rezones to along 5490. But I think we've got to get the road issue solved with the property owners, and it's not the West Jordan City Council's job to give somebody an entitlement so that they have leverage with the homeowners to try and get to try to build that development. And with that, I will shut up.
Noting a lot of hands for that last comment. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I almost did it again. See, I'm a little bit in a cart horse / chicken egg scenario here too, and not just because it's a rural zone. I don't know which should come first. I kind of like the zoning. I think the changes that have been made have addressed most of the concerns. I don't think you're ever going to get a zoning request that satisfies everybody. It just doesn't happen. Nobody raised their hands for that. But with the half-acre lots, you know, with the animal rights on part of it and the subdivision on the part of it, and kind of with the subdivisions, I don't mind that. I kind of see that as the future of the area. But again, like Councilmember, yeah, I'm right, Green just said, I did. Like you just said, though, I don't know how far down the road that is, and I don't mean to use the pun too many times, but how far in the future that might be. So I'm kind of, I like the zoning. I'm okay with it. I think it's a good compromise from what was initially proposed to what the developer wanted, to what the neighbors wanted to kind of preserve. I think we're good on the zoning, but I don't know about the timing. I would really, really, really like, if I had a Aladdin's lamp up here, I would rub it and ask the genie to have the HOA meet and decide what they want the future of that road to be forever and ever. Does the HOA think that this is going to be a private road forever? Now, it's on the city's transportation plan. I looked it up this morning, and it's on the city's transportation plan as a future collector road, not even a future residential road, a collector road, which usually doesn't even have houses with driveways on it. A collector road usually has the backs of houses on it and has residential roads that come off of that have houses that face them. So the HOA needs to decide what is going to happen with this road. Is it going to be a future collector road or not? And if not, then we need to rework the master transportation plan and amend it and get that road off of there. Because people like the Barbers and the Petersons here are going off of the fact that that is on our master transportation plan. Now, it's not our road. It's not our land. We don't get to decide this. We don't have the right-of-way here. So we don't have the ability to say, yes, that's our road. We're going to make it a collector road. And, you know, force the developers as they come in to kind of build their section of that road like we do all over the city. So the question that's kind of the crux of the issue for me is the city willing to exercise eminent domain and force this road into the public domain? Or should this road remain with the HOA, which has spoken loudly, silently but loudly tonight, that they don't want this road public right now? But again, I want you to meet, I want the HOA to meet, I want the HOA to decide, is this a public road or isn't it? Because that needs to be decided. And even if that's 5 years, 10 years in the future, we need to know. if this should be on our master transportation plan or not. Now, I was under the impression for many, many years on planning commission and on the city council that everybody was kind of on the same page, that this was gonna be a public road, and everybody kind of knew that, and everybody kind of agreed to that, and that nobody really had a problem with that. Someday down the future, it would transfer that ownership to the city, and the city would be able to improve it and put in the curb and gutter and all the things that goes with a public road. However, turns out that maybe not everybody's on the same page. Who knew? So I would very much like that to happen first. I would like to have the HOA meet, decide what the future of this roadway is. Because I don't think the application works without the roadway, even the zoning. I don't think works without that roadway access. So, so HOA, figure that out. Let us know, please, very soon. And let us know, and gosh darn it, if the HOA would meet and invite the Petersons and the Barbers to come meet with you too, and everybody can get on the same page, that would be great as well. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Again, it's a cart and horse thing. I don't know if I can approve the zoning without the road issue figured out. And I don't know if the zoning needs to be in place for the road issue to be figured out. So, anyway, that's where I am.
Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Chair McConaughey, and thank you, Councilmember Green and Councilmember Zach, for your comments. As I listen to both of you, I agree with probably 99.9% of what you said. I'm sure there's always a 0.1% of something that we don't agree with. But you know, it's interesting. When I got on City Council, I didn't realize how much time we would spend in making decisions on rezoning. You would think that a map and zones that we've put together, that a previous council and previous city staff has put together, we would just go by those zones, and when developers came in, they would say, okay, that zone, this is what I'll put in there because I can fit that zone. But we've had a lot of requests in just the short time I've been on, and I'm sure there's been 1,000 requests before me to take one zone and change it to another. Now, I'm not opposed to the zone that's out there. The R112 fits the neighborhood that's right to the south of it. I think the half-acre lots are great as well. I think the biggest issue that I see as I listen to citizens and know that we are listening to you, because if we didn't listen as a council, we wouldn't be here tonight. We would have decided this many meetings ago just to not let it happen. But the issue tonight, and this didn't come up as much in the last public hearing that we had, is who owns the road and what are we gonna do with that road? And from my point of view, I don't live there, but I do see your point of view, because in my neighborhood off 13th West, there were some issues that we as neighbors saw go in that we weren't very happy with. And I always tell the council that's why I'm on the council now, is because we fought against something that we didn't want in our neighborhood, and it happened anyway. So I want you to know, citizens, that I do listen as a council member, and I've heard your emails. I've read your email. I didn't hear your emails. I've read your emails, and I've heard you. And tonight, I think it'd be solved pretty easy if this is my feeling, is if that road didn't empty out onto 5490 West, you probably wouldn't have a big problem with it. Because it does, the R112 does fit that southern neighborhood as far as how big the lots are. But tonight, as Councilmember Green said, cart before the horse. I want to make sure that this is done correctly and that we don't change the zone first and then find out the road can't be changed after. And so those are kind of my thoughts, even though I'm rambling a little bit, but I do want you to know that all of you have been heard. Thank you.
Councilmember Pack.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful for all the information that's been shared, and I certainly don't want to have it be a group think. I want to be an independent thinker, but also take into consideration everything that's been said. And one of the most important criteria for me is what Planning Commission says. I always go to that first, having served on that commission, because here are 7 people that we've appointed to be able to vet issues with a city of our size. And so it was interesting to note a 7-0 vote against this application, and then a 6-1 approval of it. And so I went down item by item to see what had been changed, and everything looked good to me on the changes that had been made by Peterson, with regard to satisfying what Planning Commission saw. And after studying that, I thought everything was probably going to go rather smoothly, and I do appreciate the citizen comment, and I too have returned a lot of emails, spent a lot of time on the phone, and met with people in person, and the road is the issue. And I like the way that Councilmember Jacob mentioned it. If we do the rezone, can we do the road? But if we do the road, do we do the rezone? It is that conundrum there, and I know that we're only looking at the rezone itself right now, but it does have that nuance in there of how are we going to deal with the road issue. I appreciate the other issues that have been bring up, like animal rights. I'm not so sure about this being a spot zone, because when someone is going to move into the area, certainly they would hopefully look around and also smell around to see what's going on in the adjacent area, which is always the conundrum that we're facing here, the property rights of someone that wants to develop balanced with the property rights of adjacent property owners. Transportation, I appreciate what's been said there. Understandably, with smaller lots, there are more cars, but realistically, there wouldn't be as much traffic, maybe a few extra lots. And also, where do we stop the idea of how far does an adjacent property have to abut up to the property of the same zone? You know, sooner or later that has to stop. And so I agree the zoning would work, but we've got to figure out the road issue. That's the sticky wicket here. So I too am of the idea that if the HOA in Peterson could get together and figure out what's going to go on there, it just doesn't work without the road, although so many other items have been mitigated that Planning Commission noticed needed to be addressed. Thank you.
So where does the council want to go with this? Any thoughts or attempts at a motion? Councilmember Pack.
Sorry.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you. I would not want to move to deny, because I think the zoning request is the right balance, or as close as we're going to get to the right balance. However, I also am not ready to approve because of the pending issues. So I think I would like to table this, to a date uncertain, to leave it so that the developer doesn't have to come back with another application and make it different, or wait a year, or any of those other things that go into a thing when you deny it. So if we table this to a date uncertain with the hope that we figure out what the future of the road is, both immediate and long-term, and then we can revisit this based on that information. So I will make a motion to table this to a date uncertain.
Councilmember Pack.
Thank you. I'll second the motion.
Discussion to the motion. Councilmember Green.
I see your point, but I think we need to be how do I say this? I think there's a bunch of people, you can probably raise your hands, the number of meetings that you've been here. I think this is number 6, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly, I think we probably need to move on and give the citizens of the area some definitive stuff. But I do see where you're going with this.
Similar to Councilmember Green, I would speak in opposition to the motion, because I'd rather not leave this one open-ended indefinitely. I very much appreciate the work and the effort that the developers put into it, and I think we can probably work on the process with staff so that things don't necessarily have to wait a year. If something comes back that's deemed substantially different, it doesn't have to have that waiting period. And if some of these hurdles that have been addressed tonight can be taken care of, then that wouldn't then in my mind, that would qualify for a substantially different proposal. But with things as it stands right now, I would echo the concerns about the road. I spoke ad nauseum at the last public hearing. I'm not going to repeat myself this time. But also the concern for dragging this out indefinitely, not having any real date for closure. I would rather move to something to give some sense of certainty to everybody, so that a clear path can be laid to move forward. So I would be in opposition to the motion to table. Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Whitelock.
May I ask you a clarifying question?
Sure.
Is it just opposed to table because there's no date certain, or just opposed to table?
Both.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other discussion to the motion? Councilmember Pack.
Thank you, Chair. Wondering, Councilmember Jacob, if you would be open to amending the motion with defining a timeline by which we could revisit this.
I appreciate the thought, and that did occur to me, but I really want to leave this open to letting the groups that are affected the most have the time they need, whatever that is. So if it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, I don't know how often their HOA meets. My HOA meets like 3 times a year. So, you know, that would be a long ways down the road, and I don't see a special meeting convened, you know what I mean? So without knowing more about it, no, I'd like to leave it date uncertain just so that it's out there. And mostly I'm doing that because I don't want to move to deny at this point and have all those hurdles that come with a denied application before it can be resubmitted. I don't want something substantially different. I like this proposal. I think it's pretty much hits the nail on the head. It's almost exactly what I proposed approving last time we saw this in December. So, so at this point, you know, I don't want to see something substantially different or put any unnecessary hurdles in place. So that's why I'm kind of leaving it date uncertain.
All right. See no other comments or discussion to the motion? Let's vote.
Councilmember Green?
No.
Councilmember Whitelock?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
No.
Councilmember Pack?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Missing one on here. Who did I miss? Oh. Councilmember Worthen?
No.
Vote passes 4-3.
Okay. Moving on, our next public hearing is 6B, which is receive input and consideration for adoption of ordinance 20-02, a general plan land use map amendment for 1.5 acres from high-density residential to community commercial, and rezoning the high-density multifamily residential WSPA to SC2, which is community shopping center. And this is for Nielsen's Custard in the Highland Center, located at approximately 7652 South Highlands Loop Road. And this is also with the Petersons. So we'll follow the same process for this one and invite the applicant representing this application to the podium.
2 of us come up?
Sure. Sure, 8 minutes.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, my name is, excuse me, Steve Nielsen. My son Doug, I founded Nielsen's Frozen Custard. My wife and I, who is here, founded Nielsen's Frozen Custard 39 years ago, and all 5 of our children and 10 of our 16 grandchildren work with us in it. Now, we're from Bountiful. We are proposing to build the diner that we have built in South Jordan. Has been a great success there for the last 3 years. Bountiful is this same building, only much smaller. that's been there from the beginning. The only difference between what we're proposing here and South Jordan is we've learned that we need another 3 feet in length of building for a door that's more convenient to get out onto the patio. Our customers on the patio and grass areas love that in the good weather months. And so that's really the only difference. This is such a luxury site. I'm not sure we could ever, it's such a privilege for us to even be talking to West Jordan about this, quite frankly. The amount of parking, the stacking of the cars, the patio area, everything is just a dream for us. And we have learned that we are a destination. People will come to us. It's not an impulse. I'm sure some do that, but it is a destination. It's been a marvelous thing to watch. And this is going to be a family store, so all these people I have just mentioned that are Nielsen's, this will be one of our family stores that we will watch over. Doug, tell us about how it came about that this sits on that grass area right there, the grassy knoll as we call it. I'm a child of the 60s, so.
We know it is a little different. In the planning commission, they asked, why do you want to be over there? We said, have you seen how beautiful this will be right there? So it will just be gorgeous. The patio that we have rolls down onto that grass area. We hear it's
endless patios.
Endless patios, right. Sledding in the winter, we hear, and it's a lot of fun. We're excited. Largely, we've learned a few things with our South Jordan location, which is we need more parking. We got a lot more parking here. We got a lot more stacking with our drive-through, and it is, I don't think we could have dreamed up a better layout for this. Now, I know this meeting is not for the site plan and all that, it's just for the rezoning, but it's just a little flavor of what's to come, right?
We'll answer any questions that.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Worthen.
I don't have any questions. I just think you should double decker this. I've been to South Jordan, and I'll tell you, you get the kids at the dances that are coming and taking pictures, and
well, I had in mind
popular.
I had in mind a condo that's all windows on top of that we would use, but.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything that staff would like to add, any clarifications or technical remarks for the council? All right, seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to address the council? Marie, we'll start with you.
Hello, I did not expect to speak tonight until I heard about this. I live up there at 8484 South Ivy Gable Drive. There is a need for this kind of thing out there. There is nowhere to get ice cream. So especially, I love Nielsen's. So I support this. I don't know if it means anything, but being a resident up there, it would be really great to have something like that to go to. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Brian Clegg looked like he was starting to move towards it. No? Okay. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the council for deliberation or a motion. Councilmember Lamb, you're first.
All right, I have to agree. I don't live out there, but I'm going to drive out there when this is done, because right now I drive out to South Jordan. For years, my wife lived over in the Holiday area, and we drove by Holiday. And don't get me wrong, I love your store in Holiday, but there's always a line. And so when you opened up South Jordan, I was so happy because I didn't have to wait as long to get my Nielsen's.
Still a line.
Yeah, there's still a line, but I don't feel like it's as long in South Jordan, and so I'm happy to have this come in. The only thing I do ask is, once we get you in, if you can get Texas Roadhouse to build next to you, will be perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Pack.
Oh, thank you. I'm all for amenities and destination. anything that we can offer to enhance our neighborhood and community. Plus, it's one of the 100 best things you can eat, so, you know. And if our police chief says it would be a good thing, it must be a good thing, right, Chief? No, but in all seriousness, I've looked at the plan, and not just because of the brand, but it seems to make sense in that location, so long as they continue to have lemon raspberry with almond. Thank you.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Thank you. I guess I didn't know about Holiday, and I've driven to Bountiful, so, okay. It's a short drive, right? I just want to thank you for coming to bring more commercial to our city, because I strongly feel that's something that we need. And in that area, we do need places for people to go eat, places for them to wash their car, to get gas, to buy groceries. Lots of things we need out in that area. So thank you for bringing this proposal.
Councilmember Worthen.
I just want to reiterate what she just said. I lived on the west side of Bacchus. I literally was the farthest house in West Jordan for a little while. And yes, definitely need more commercial out on the west side. And glad to have you here. Welcome to West Jordan. Super happy you're here. And I have to tell you a success story of my own. I actually went to your store last Saturday night, and I pulled right into the drive-thru right behind one car. And by the time I left, it literally was out and around and back to the light. And I was like, yes, I got in first. So I was very excited. So thank you very much, and much success to you guys.
My primary concern is when I was in high school, I know the Bountiful location did spur quite a few extended lunches that got me in a bit of trouble. So it's actually probably a better thing for our high school students to have something here in West Jordan. So I can't believe we went through this far in the council comments and nobody made the motion. So I'm happy to snag that privilege and move to adopt ordinance 20-02.
Second.
Councilmember Whitelock. Any conversation or any discussion to the motion? It's not part of the motion, but based on the comments, I think the council would be very appreciative if we could all get invitations to the grand opening and ribbon cutting. Not part of the motion, but it would be encouraged. Let's vote.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
I'll throw in an adverb that I don't usually do. Salivatingly yes.
Councilmember Green.
This is not a plain vanilla yes.
Councilmember Pack.
Definitely yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Worthen.
I'll go with a chocolate peanut butter yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
All right, next up we have our consent items, A through D. I have not had any requests to pull anything from consent for discussion. So if there is anything that you'd like to pull, or if somebody would like to make a motion, I would welcome that. Councilmember Green.
I move that we approve consent items A through D. Yes, A through D.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Green, second by Councilmember Worthen. Any discussion to the motion? Let's vote.
Councilmember Pack.
Yes.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Worthen.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
And with that, on behalf of the council, I'd like to extend a welcome to Eric Plath as he serves on the Design Review Committee, Cindy Quick as the City Recorder, and Alan Anderson as Deputy Council Office Director. Thank you. Looking forward to working with the three of you. Business items. We have a few business items tonight. Our first one is business item number 9A, which is a Sandy City stormwater fee appeal. And this one's a little bit different from most business items because this is a quasi-judicial action that we're taking rather than regular rather than a regular business item. And since this is a little bit out of the norm, I'm not sure if I should look to Mr. Bricky or Mr. Wall for clarification as to the process, or somebody else, but Mr. Wall's light is on, so.
Let me just make a quick introduction. As Chairman McConaughey indicated, the council under the city code is an appeal body for these type of issues, and that's why this is before you. I know that the city attorney's office provided you some material a little bit earlier on your role in this kind of an appeal. So our suggestion is that you go ahead and hear what the Sandy City representatives have to say, and then you have an opportunity to deliberate in the state code and under case law. When you sit as a quasi-judicial body, you can deliberate privately, but ultimately your decision, once you hear what Sandy has to present and you deliberate, needs to be delivered openly. Our suggestion to the chair, and I'll just reiterate it here, is that you issue a written opinion when you're ready to issue that opinion, so it's clear what you've decided, and so Sandy has the correct information and the direction they can go.
And when you say the recommendation is for you to issue that written opinion, I assume that can be delegated to the legal department to draft it appropriately rather
Absolutely.
than? Okay.
And in fact, if you have any questions when you deliberate, we're at your disposal, and we're happy to help you draft the decision once you decide.
All right. So another quick question is to process. The information that we received talked about the opportunity to hear from the petitioner and then also for a respondent. From your comments, are we just hearing from?
That's up to you. This particular appeal, you've had a lot of discussions about these water rates over the last 2 years, and you probably know as much about what they currently are and what you have planned for the future as I do. And but if you do have specific questions, probably with the staff here, we can address them.
All right.
But I would just encourage. I think Sandy also, if I wasn't correct, if I'm not mistaken, provided you some written material ahead of time about their appeal. I just encourage you to listen to what they have to say, and then if you have questions, let's hear what they are.
All right, thank you. So as the process goes, we'll open it up to hear from the folks with Sandy. If there are any clarifying questions, just purely seeking information from the body, no opinion, but we can ask any questions that we may have, and then this will be something that can be deliberated in closed session. So with that, open it up to Darian Alcorn to address the council, please.
Thank you, Chair and Council. I'm Darian Alcorn. I'm a senior civil attorney for Sandy. And Bob Thompson, our city attorney, and also Scott Earl, our Parks and Recreation Director, are here. So if you have questions that I can't answer, hopefully they can help. This should be a brief presentation. We did file an appeal in August, and it had a lot of the legal support for the requests that we're making. So I won't repeat that. I'll just go through some of the basics with this presentation. And hopefully I can figure out how to drive. So as you're aware, Sandy City owns the River Oaks Golf Course. It straddles the boundary between West Jordan and Sandy, and it's located, part of the golf course is located in sort of the southeast corner of West Jordan. So West Jordan provides a stormwater service, and the stormwater service is to remove stormwater runoff from property. Our golf course does generate some stormwater runoff from a small building, a parking area, some paved cart paths. And each of the parcels in West Jordan, they pay according to what's called an equivalent residential unit. And that is supposed to be representative of the comparative amount of stormwater that they create that enters into West Jordan's system. Each single family residence pays for 1 ERU. And then other properties pay a greater amount according to the characteristics of their property. This is an illustration of how stormwater runoff is generated. So when the precipitation lands on an impervious surface like a building or a paved area, which we do have some of in the golf course, it runs across the surface of the paved area in the building. But when the precipitation lands on a pervious surface, then the water is able to penetrate that surface and soak into the groundwater. The history of the stormwater fee that Sandy pays is based on the 59 acres of the River Oaks Golf Course that's located within the West Jordan city boundaries. We've paid a monthly commercial stormwater fee for at least 5 years, and our current payment is $1,215.32 per month. Sandy staff and West Jordan staff throughout the years have exchanged a lot of information about different types of rates and the way various cities calculate their rates. And for some time, we believed that West Jordan might adopt a different rate, but that had not happened before August of 2019. So in August, we filed an appeal of the fee to request a different type of calculation. We've continued to make the monthly payment under protest, so we have paid all those fees even though we filed an appeal. We requested a different type of a calculation based on impervious area, and we requested a refund of the fees that we had already paid for that difference. This is an illustration of the golf course, and then some randomly selected single-family residential adjacent to the golf course. You can see on the single family, we identified the pervious surfaces with that lime green color and the impervious surfaces with gray. On the golf course, we didn't do that because it really is significantly green. You can see that it's grass, either grass or other native vegetation, and then only the gray areas are the impervious surface. This is an illustration of an apartment that's also adjacent to the golf course. You can see it's just west of the golf course where pervious surfaces are shown in green, and then impervious surfaces, which are a significant portion of this parcel, are shown in gray. I created this table to describe what's shown in those illustrations. That's a little bit easier to read. So you can see the gross areas of the different uses are about 59 acres for the golf course, a little less than 0.3 acres as an average of those 3 single-family homes that we selected. And then the apartment complex has a little over 7 acres. The percent impervious on the golf course, which is anything that's paved or a structure, is only 4.53%. So it's a tenth of what is impervious percentage in a single family residence. That's almost half, and the apartment complex is about 64%. The impervious area of the golf course is 2.69 acres. Compared to the 0.137 acres that was averaged from those 3 single family residents, the golf course does have about 19 times more impervious surface than the single family, but the calculation of the ERUs for the golf course assumes that the golf course is equivalent to 217 single family residents. So it's significantly more than the actual runoff generating potential. The gross, and the reason for this is that the way the fee is calculated, the golf course and other commercial properties, they're billed at 4,000 square feet gross. So 1 ERU is for every 4,000 square feet of gross, whereas the average of the single family residence, that's 1 ERU, is about 12,937 square feet. That results in our monthly fee being the $1,215.32. A single family residence that pays 1 ERU is $558, and estimated based on the way ours is calculated, the apartment would be about $440, even though more than half of their more than half of their surfaces are impervious. This was the request. So what we requested was that the golf course's 2.69 acres of impervious be compared to the 4,000 square feet, and that Sandy be charged based on the impervious surface instead of the gross area. So our fee is a little bit different throughout the months, but the request was that instead of paying the $11.99 or the $12.15, that Sandy pay $161.82. And the other column shows the difference that we requested in our appeal to be refunded for those months. As I said at the beginning, the law that supports our request is pretty well laid out in the appeal that we filed in August, so I'm not going to go into that. The West Jordan City Code allows you to determine if the fee isn't reasonably calculated, that there can be an adjustment to that by the council. So you have the authority to do that, and that's why we're here presenting it to you tonight. Just a quick run through of the fairness and equity that we think supports this request as well is that the fee for service is to cover the cost of the service. The service is removing the stormwater because the runoff is generated from impervious surfaces and captured by pervious surfaces. And our golf course is only 4.53% impervious and 95.47% pervious. To the extent that we're not capturing our own runoff on our own pervious areas, we think that it's fair, even looking at all the impervious surfaces being 19 times a single family residence, we're actually proposing that we use 29 ERUs. So it's a bigger number even than the areas that we measured showed when we looked at those other residences. That is all I have, and so I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for me, or if you have any questions about the golf course, Scott is an expert and can answer those.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Chairman. Good to see you, by the way. It's been a while.
Thank you.
Welcome back for one night only. Tonight only. Be sure to tip your waitresses. How long has Sandy, you mentioned at least 5 years that Sandy has been paying the West Jordan stormwater fee as it's been, I think we've calculated it the same way as far as how we calculate ERUs, roughly the same method the whole time, is that right?
I believe so. So the fee when we originally started paying was significantly less. I think that it's gone up based on the unit rate, not based on a different calculation method. But I didn't research that because we were only appealing 10 months worth about.
Which is really what my question is based on, and that is what has changed? Why are you appealing now versus a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if this has been going on for 5 years or more?
So there have been a lot of members of staff here in West Jordan who have been working on the rate structure, and we're consulting with staff at Sandy City kind of for input and how different cities do their rate structure. And Sandy City had been helping them to sort of develop a new rate structure here in West Jordan. And so all of that time, what Sandy City staff believed was that the rate structure would be adopted at a new rate soon anyway. And so they were willing to just work cooperatively with West Jordan and let the new rate be adopted and begin to pay the new rate when that happened. There was some staff turnover that then made Sandy believe that maybe it wasn't going to be as imminent as they had thought for that time. And obviously, Sandy City also has a stormwater fee. So you can see in the information that I filed that we believe that the law supports having a fee. So I don't think that we were opposed to paying. We just were trying to help West Jordan have a different calculation method.
Okay, so did something happen then in April, May, June, July of 2019 that changed Sandy's position as far as what you reasonably expected to happen next?
So there was some staff turnover, and I believe that there is a letter in the materials that were submitted to you during the discussions with West Jordan. We had come up with an idea with staff that West Jordan would stop paying at that time. So the idea was that we would stop paying, and then when the new rate structure was adopted, we would back calculate what Sandy owed after the new rate structure was adopted. And there was some staff turnover, and we realized that that was not actually an option. So we had been discussing that we'd paid all those years and we were gonna stop paying, and then we would back calculate it later when the new rates got adopted.
Okay, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Wall, it sounded like there won't be a respondent to speak to the council?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. The council will take this under advisement, and you'll be notified when we're ready to render a decision. And of course, as Mr. Wall stated, it will also be provided in writing.
And I shouldn't have said I don't think so. No, they don't have anything else.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we will move on to our next item now, which my computer doesn't freeze on me, is going to be business item 9B, which is discussion and possible action regarding approval of city council members attending the 2020 Utah League of Cities and Towns mid-year conference coming up this April in St. George. And in the packet, there's just a section from our current council rules and procedures that states, when a council member expresses interest in traveling to a conference, convention, or seminar, the city manager will prepare a notice on a council agenda. And if the council is opposed to the proposed travel or funds are not available, the trip will not be scheduled. Otherwise, if approved, the city manager will arrange for the travel. So this is to approve travel to the ULCT conference in St. George. And just in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and make the motion to move to approve the request to travel to the April 2020 ULCT meetings.
Second.
So motion by myself, second by Councilmember Whitelock. Any discussion to the motion? Councilmember Lamb?
Do we need to discuss who wants to go up here, or is that off the dais, or how do we want to do that? In the past, we've kind of said who's going and who's not.
We can do that here. We don't have to allocate the funding by individual.
Okay.
We can say it's approved, and then whoever would like to go can coordinate with council staff to make those arrangements, or if we'd like to, we could address it here too.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Worthen,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Pack.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
Okay, moving on. Next item is business item 8C, which is coming to us from Mayor Burton, and this is discussion and possible action regarding council assignments to various city committees. Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Chair. You should have
Sorry.
received in your packet a list of committees that I plan to either continue or create for West Jordan. Now, this list will change from time to time, but that's where I am looking right now. And then we also have some external committees that I would like to have some council participation on. If you're willing, I'm happy to take the names of any who want to. I'm fine if one council member wants to be on more than one committee of your likings. But I think it's really good to have council participation in those committees. It helps things go smoother, so I would be thrilled if you're willing to do that. How would you like to handle that?
Well, let's start with questions from the council. So Councilmember Whitelock.
So Mayor, I have a question. When I look at this list, one of them is Jordan School District. And per the agreement that was worked out, that's the mayor that sits on there, and the mayor has voice. If you send someone else and you don't give them voice, my experience going for mayor writing was kind of not really worthwhile.
So the answer to that, I do plan to go, but I would invite a council member to join me in addition to that. And we could change it to they would have voice when I'm not there, or even when I'm there. I know the school district would be willing to do that.
Councilmember Lamb.
I was just going to express the committees I would like to serve on, but if we're going to do that this time, then I can hold. So I'm not sure where we're going with that. Do we want to discuss committees that we'd like to be on, or?
We'll first see if there's any other questions for Councilmember Burton, and then we'll go through the list of committees.
That's Mayor Burton.
Mayor Burton. Old habit. In about 10 minutes, we'll be trying to give you direction too.
Totally understandable.
Am I okay?
Yeah, Councilmember Green. if you have
The
questions.
one that I have on the list that we have to cross off is the general plan committee belongs to us by ordinance. If you look in that was part of the city reorganization. There will be a resolution coming before us, I think, wasn't it next meeting? But the general plan committee actually belongs to the city council. So not to be confrontive, but we have to cross that one off because that's ours.
Okay, then you can't be on that committee, can't you?
No,
Since that is your committee.
that's probably true.
Thank you.
All right. So if there are no other questions, we'll go through the list of committees. First up is Western Stampede. Councilmember Lamb.
I served on it last year and really enjoyed being on that, so I would like to put my name in to be on the Western Stampede Committee again as a member of the council.
I've enjoyed serving on that one in the past. I would appreciate the opportunity to serve as alternate if there's no other interest. Any other interest in Western Stampede? Okay. Events. Who would be interested in serving on this committee? Or do we need some background from the mayor on what's expected in service on this one?
The events committee is probably the most fun committee that the city has. They oversee the events such as the Easter egg hunt, the Santa Claus is coming to town, the Princess Ball, which is happening tomorrow night, where I will be there with my 3 granddaughters. And they also oversee, not directly, all the events, they work hand in hand with Western Stampede, so they do all the other events that happen during the Western Stampede time.
They're interested in serving on
Chris, I guess another general question is I'm trying to figure out what our role would be on these committees. What purpose we would be serving, I guess.
Mayor Burton, could you speak to that?
Certainly. You would be helping to give advice and direction, and you'd be understanding the budget restraints because the budget is yours. So those that have budgets, you would be able to help with there. But mainly, you'd just be giving support and providing support to it to show that the city cares about what they're doing.
Councilmember Worthen.
I'd be happy to do the events.
Councilmember Lamb.
I just want to reiterate what Mayor Burton just said. I don't think the roles for the council have changed on these committees, other than they're under the mayor. But like Mayor Burton said, I think it's an opportunity for us to represent us as a council. We might not be able to make any final decisions without going through the mayor's office, but it's an opportunity for us to serve on these committees and to serve the people as well. And I don't see me as a council member going into the Western Santa Fe Committee and taking over. I just see myself as a representative of our council and as a citizen of our city. So those are kind of my thoughts as we're looking to serve in these committees again.
Councilmember Pack.
Well, thank you, Chair. Is there a baseline expectation of how many committees each council member should serve on internally or externally?
I don't think we've really set an expectation in the past. In the past, we have been provided with like a nice little spreadsheet that has the name of the committee, the prior council member assigned to it, plus alternate, the nights that they would meet, because some of them meet pretty frequently, some are less frequent.
Because also with that, thank you for bringing it up, because my other consideration was it might make a difference in knowing what days and times these committees historically have met, because I'd hate to sign up for something and then realize, oh, I can't do it at that day or time. I thought before we voted we'd know a little bit more about what it would entail. Are these monthly meetings, quarterly meetings? And I actually thought there were more committees. Isn't there, for instance, an arts council or arts committee and other committees? Am I mistaken?
There used to be an arts committee, and that had subcommittees below it, but that has spun off separate and its own and it is now its own independent nonprofit. So that's why you no longer see the arts with the youth theater or the symphony, the orchestra, the band.
Oh, thank you. I thought there was still
all those
a
others.
committee associated with it, even with that. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And then there used to also be a sister city committee, but you'll see that that one was not on the list that the mayor provided to us.
Can't travel to Russia anymore?
Mayor, do you have anything that you'd add?
I deliberately didn't put the dates and times on there because our committees are changing quite a bit right now by who's going to be attending, and I want them to choose when they meet and their times and their days. And because that is in flux, I left that open for them to decide when we get it reorganized.
Thank you.
Councilmember Whitelock.
So in light of that, I can do Western Growth.
Western Growth. Okay.
And now that one, it does have a set day and time. It's still the third Wednesday at 4.
Okay. All right. So let's return to, so I've scribbled down Councilmember Whitelock for Western Growth. Going back to events, Councilmember Worthen wanted to serve on that one. Is there somebody who'd like to serve as an alternate? All right.
You can put me down for an alternate.
Okay. Next up is Healthy West Jordan. I believe Councilmember Whitelock has served on this one previously. Would you like to continue serving, or?
You know how you guys always say you don't have time? I don't really have time.
All right.
So-
Is there somebody else who would like to serve on Healthy West Jordan?
I'd consider it. I just need to know when and where. Well, I know they meet here, but how historically, when has it been?
Second Thursday at 5.
Thank you. I'll check my schedule real quick. Thanks.
All right. So I'll put Councilmember Pack down for that one with a question mark to be confirmed here in a few moments. Sustainability Committee.
I have a question on this one.
For Jacob.
In the past, this was once 2 committees, if you'll remember way back when. And then it was the Sustainability and Budget Committee kind of rolled into one. Seems like the budget part of that has really kind of evaporated. There's been absolutely zero budget input on that. I mean, I chaired that committee for 3 years, and I can tell you we didn't, or I chaired it for 1 year, but I was on it for 3 years. And I can tell you we didn't provide any budget input at all. So I just wonder if there's any thought of changing that committee's responsibility, role, especially as regards to the budget, but just in general focus, what you're seeing.
If you look at your list, you'll notice that the Strategic Budget Planning Committee is a new one, and that's where I want to put it in there. instead of put it in with the strategic planning. So,
All right.
I mean, instead of putting it with the sustainability, I apologize. So that'd be in that new committee.
All right, thank you for that clarification. I just wanted to get that clarification out there.
Yeah, and even prior, Sustainability Committee, you go back 11, 12 years, it used to be the Water Committee, then it became the Budget Committee, and then there wasn't enough participation, so budget expanded to look at sustainability in general, and then anyway, that's a little bit more. So, sustainability, is there somebody who would like to serve with that one? Councilmember Worthing.
I'm not volunteering. I just want to reiterate what Dave said. Part of my problem when looking at this is several of us have full-time jobs during the day if we don't have full-time things to do during the day. So not knowing when they are makes it hard. So, I mean, I'm happy to help with events, but if they have their meetings at noon on Thursdays, I'm out. I mean, so it's kind of hard to commit to some of these without knowing when they are, so we can commit to them. Is there a way that we could maybe look at this at a later date once we have
Yes.
some ideas?
I can tell you that one in the past has met on Wednesday evenings at 7 PM, I believe. Is that right, Alan?
They have adjusted their schedule. Lately, they've been meeting the third Thursday, I believe at 6:30 PM here at City Hall.
And see how that changes, that's why I
Okay.
didn't put it on there, because
But-
when their needs change, they're at liberty to change their schedule.
Even with the external committees, I mean, that's just to have a better idea of, I'm happy to commit, I just need to know what I'm committing to.
And I'm happy to provide where they have been in the past. The external committees, those are pretty well set, and I can give you those.
All right, so any takers for sustainability?
Wednesday evenings. Thursday evenings, sorry.
And usually it's once a month, correct?
Once a month.
We'll leave that one empty for now. Airport Advisory Board. Councilmember Green.
I'd take that one unless Councilmember Jacob, he buzzed into.
I just had a question on when they meet. That's kind of an external-ish committee, so I just didn't know when they meet. It's, I mean,
Historically, same time as sustainability and right on top of when the Arts Committee met as well.
The events, yes.
okay.
Generally,
So
they meet on
it's an
Wednesday evening.
evening.
This is the one that's the city's committee,
Okay.
not the airport authority.
The airport committee, gotcha.
And if there's no objection, I'd like to serve as alternate then. Okay, next up is Parks and Open Land. Do I hit your mic so folks can?
I don't know when the parks have been meeting.
I think that's the one.
I think Councilman
I
Lamb.
was on that, but due to my work, I was unable to attend all of last year, so, if I remember right, it's the second Thursday of the month.
In the evening?
Yeah, about 5:30.
Okay.
All right.
I'll volunteer as an alternate.
Okay. General Plan Committee, I believe the consensus is to remove this from the list, correct?
Correct. Oh, sorry.
Next, we have Strategic Budget Planning Committee. Mayor, could you give us a little more info on this? There's no history that we can go off of since this
There is no
noted as new.
history, so this will be one where we look at what the needs are of the city and what we need to do, add or include in our budget. So we want this to help us with our budget for next year, so we can start doing long-term planning for how we're going to get there and what we're going to do to make those happen. Often we don't think about those till it's budget time, and then we bring them up at that phase and we're already too late. So I want to start this on an earlier basis so we can be prepared when it's time to start working on the budget. So I can't give you any history since there is none.
Any takers for the Strategic Budget Planning Committee? Councilmember
Is that
Lamb.
one that maybe we just wait till it gets started and then we can decide later?
If you choose.
Mayor, if you're okay with that, then we'll leave this one empty and to be brought back to the council. Next up, we have the Community Development Block Grant Committee, yeah, that one. Councilmember Pack.
I've served on it before. I'd be happy to be an alternate so that someone else can have the chance to check out the budget and how it's used, if that helps.
Historically, this has typically been given to somebody who's relatively new to the council to give them an opportunity to see a little bit of insight into the community. This one's rather unique because the city receives federal pass-through funds that are passed on to charitable organizations within West Jordan City and helps our community. So that council member sits and meets with the different groups that are coming requesting those funds, and you get an opportunity to see a lot within the city that you wouldn't otherwise see. It's one of the most rewarding committees that you could probably sit on. Councilmember Wortham, would you like the opportunity to sit on that one?
We must warn you, that one does meet during the day.
Okay, so
That would be
Councilmember Green,
more
did you get an
appropriate.
opportunity to serve as
I
planning
served
commission
on
there
the
as well?
CDBG on Planning Commission, but the times are during the day, and my work's flexible enough, I could do that one. And it's a short time commitment because it's only a couple of meetings. So I'm okay with that.
Thank you, and I can be a backup because I actually have more free time in the day. I have flexible work hours. We can tag team it if you like. So.
We'll figure it out when we get there.
Okay. Yeah, so any of these committees that meet in the day, I'm happy to take those. I assume the external ones are probably more daytime?
Yes.
All right, so moving on to the external committees. First up, we have, ULCT, LPC. We've already discussed having Councilmember Jacob serve there. Salt Lake Council of Governments, otherwise known as COG.
This is one that I've been doing for last year and a half or so. Before that, I was an alternate. Very rewarding. I really enjoy it. I wouldn't mind continuing to do it. They meet typically on Mondays, I believe, 4 times a year, usually at lunchtime. So, and they buy lunch. Just saying. If nobody else wants to do it, I'd be happy to continue doing it, but I'd be happy to down to an alternate if somebody else wants to do it.
Not seeing any lights pop up, so it sounds like Councilmember Jacob. Do we have somebody who would like to serve as alternate there?
I'll do alternate.
And Councilmember Lamb as alternate. Next
And
up.
I might mention, we have 2 members on there, but I'm only asking for 1 alternate because before we did 2 alternates, but I think 1 alternate to fill in for either one of the other 2 is adequate.
So are you saying you don't need an alternate from us?
Right, so the alternate for myself or Councilman Jacob is what it'll be. So if one of us can't make it, you could go and be the voting member of that meeting.
All right, next up is Chamber West. And quick clarification here. Is it Board of Governors or the Board of Directors that's looking to have an assignment? I believe previously, Mayor Riding was serving on the Board of Governors and I was on the Board of Directors. Or do I have that backwards?
That is a good question. Tawny, could you help answer that question? Okay. Board of Directors.
All right. So who would like to serve with Chamber West? Typically, this one is this is daytime. In fact, the next meeting is, where did it go? I'm looking at the calendar because it's actually, I thought it was this week or next. But usually Thursday mornings, breakfast is included
And
once a
they've
month.
been holding them lately at the Jordan Valley Hospital. Used to be in West Valley, it's now in West Jordan, so it's close.
What time do they meet?
Next one is on Thursday, the 20th.
7:30 a.m.?
The Board of Directors meeting is happening on Friday, the 20th, and that's from 12 to 1:30. That's a lunch one. And then if you're on the Board of Directors, you're also on the Board of Governors, and that's the Board of Governors is the one that serves in the morning with breakfast. I believe it's every other month. So you'll have 1 month it's breakfast, next month is a lunch.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not meeting at 10 a.m., I'm good. If it's 7:30 a.m. or a lunch, then I can make it. So if those are the times, then I can serve in that one.
Thank you.
And with it being daytime, I can be an alternate and back up Councilmember Lamb if no one else wants to do it.
As long as those meals don't go uneaten. All right, so we'll have Councilmember Lamb and with Councilmember Pack as alternate. Next up is Jordan School District. And Mayor, did you want to speak to this one?
That one is in the evening on Tuesdays, and Councilmember Whitelock has been attending and doing an excellent job. She may be able to provide us with more. I've gone a couple of times and seen her there, and she does a real good job when it's time for her to speak.
I'd be happy to do
Councilmember
that one.
Okay. Wasatch Front Regional Council, WFRC. And we're just looking for one alternate, correct? We're not
because
looking for,
I will be on there, so I'm looking for an alternate to me.
I'll do the alternate for that if anybody, unless somebody else wants it.
And that one is during the day,
all right,
like 2 p.m., is what I recall.
not seeing any lights. Councilmember Green for that one. And then last we have Western Growth, and we've got Councilmember Whitelock for that one. Do we need an alternate for that one? Or does that allow for an alternate?
There's, that one's quite flexible, so others may come if they choose regardless. But it's good to have representation from our city on a regular basis.
All right. So, Tanji, can you read back those assignments? Or I've got them if you'd like. So I'll run through and make the motion, and I move to adopt the following committee assignments for the 2020 calendar year. Western Stampede, Councilmember Lamb as primary, Councilmember McConaughey as alternate. Events Committee, Councilmember Worthen as primary, Councilmember Lamb as alternate. Healthy West Jordan, Councilmember Pack.
May I tag team that with someone? Because I
Yes.
looked through the calendar, I can probably do about half of those, 5 o'clock on Thursday.
Yes, so Councilmember Pack as primary, alternate as, we'll leave that without alternate for now.
Okay.
Airport Authority, Councilmember Green as primary, Councilmember McConaughey as alternate. Parks and Open Lands, no primary, Councilmember Green as alternate. CDBG, Councilmember Green as primary, Councilmember Pack as alternate. External committees, just to reiterate, we've already voted on ULCT LPC as Councilmember Jacob. Salt Lake Council of Governments, Councilmember Lamb as primary, Councilmember Jacob as primary, Lamb as alternate. Chamber West, Councilmember Pack as primary, Councilmember Lamb as primary, Pack as alternate. Jordan School District, Councilmember Worthen. WFRC, the alternate will be Councilmember Green, and Western Growth Coalition will be Councilmember Whitelock.
Since those meetings are weekly with the Jordan School District, is anybody willing to back me up or work with me on that one? Yeah, they're weekly. So did you go to all of them weekly? Okay, never mind then. It's twice a month, apparently.
So we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember McConaughey, second by Councilmember Jacob. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. And since this does not require a roll call vote, we can just do all in favor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries.
Chair, if I may make a note, one item we did not talk about was the Association of Municipal Councils, because that is under your domain, not under mine. So you have an opportunity to have a council member attend that. I was doing that last year, and council member Zach Jacob was the alternate, had been attended that. That is a noon meeting held once a month.
That's a lunchtime meeting as well, usually held at Murray City Hall. They also provide lunch as well. It's been interesting. They discussed some things. There's nothing binding on it or anything. It's just usually roundtable type discussions. Last time around that I went, we had Libertas people there talking about the impact of the medical marijuana bills on cities and how cities are affected by those. We've discussed ADUs, best practices for ADU ordinances in the past, stuff like that. Very, very interesting and informative to see what other cities are doing, and they bring in experts to talk about things. And it's interesting. There's no voting, there's no legislative authority there of any kind, but it's a lot of fun. They've started to meet on Tuesdays, which is more difficult for me than other days of the week. So I would be happy to continue serving as alternate, but I would suggest somebody else take primary who can go to a lunchtime meeting.
Is there somebody who would like to serve as primary for the Association of Municipal Councils?
I'll do it.
Councilmember Green, willing to take a lunch for the team?
No such thing as a free lunch.
All right, in the interest of time, I'll just go ahead and make the move to appoint Councilmember Green as primary and Councilmember Jacob as secondary representatives for the City Council to the Association of Municipal Councils for the 2020 calendar year.
Second.
And second by Councilmember Green. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item D, 9D, not 8, 9D, is going to be discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 20-10. This is supporting transportation resolution from the city supporting transportation improvements. Mayor Burton, would you like to speak to this one?
Due to the time, I'll be brief. Each of you have seen this. You saw earlier on, this was taken from the Western Growth proposal, and we simply adapted it to fit our needs in West Jordan. We added U-111 onto there because we think that's a crucial one to be considered for West Jordan with the growth we have, particularly on the western side of the city.
All right. Back to the council for discussion. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you. I'm very strongly in favor of this. However, everywhere it says U-111, it also says Bacchus Highway. That is redundant. There's the same road.
I will explain why. U-111 stops at New Bingham. Bacchus Highway goes from New Bingham on. That's why it has both of them on there.
Okay, so but U-111 is colloquially also referred to as Bacchus Highway.
It is. And it's a state road up to there, and from there it's not. And so they're technically two different roads. It's our road from New Bingham south, and it's UDOT from New Bingham north.
Okay, okay. If they both need to be on there, then they both need to be on there. I did not know that.
Councilmember Green.
I move that we approve resolution number 2010.
Councilmember Whitelock.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Green, second by Councilmember Whitelock. Any discussion to the motion? All right, let's vote.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
No.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Councilmember Pack?
Yes.
Councilmember Worthen?
Yes.
Vote passes 6 in favor.
All right, next item, we have a report on the 2020 legislative session from Tani.
Last the best of all the game, right?
We still have a couple others.
I know. So I want to start by talking just briefly about the 2020 priorities that the Utah legislature has set. Leadership at the legislature has prioritized education, transportation, outdoor recreation, mental health and suicide prevention, and then their very unspoken yet present tax reform. I think in about every meeting that we're going into, we're hearing legislators talk about how there's no funding for what we're asking for or what's in front of them because the tax reform didn't pass. So it's a very hot subject up there on the Hill. Accordingly, we have set four legislative priorities for West Jordan City, very similar to what the legislature has set. Our first is to participate in discussions and establish a stronger voice on Capitol Hill. And I just want to take a moment to thank David Brickey and Rob Wall for all the work they've done in the last 2 years, providing us a foundation to work off and kind of setting the path forward. We're also actively lobbying for transportation funding with an emphasis on regionally significant projects. So Mountain View Corridor, UN11 and Bacchus Highway, and then getting the additional on and off ramps installed on Bangerter, on Bangerter. So we're working on that. And then we're also looking to secure outdoor recreation funding. That's one of the legislature's priorities on our Big Bend restoration project down on the Jordan River. We are also joining in supporting and opposing legislation that would affect cities and towns and just anything that would have an impact that way. So I thought I would just highlight, we have the largest number of bills pretty much ever in the history of the legislature. We're monitoring over 100, so I'm gonna highlight just a few and share how we're supporting, opposing, or monitoring those bills, and then I'll just open it up for any questions and also would like any suggestions of things that maybe you're hearing about that we ought to be paying closer attention to. So the first one that I'm going to start with is Senate Bill 273. This is the Property Rights Ombudsman Amendments. We are opposing this legislation. This bill allows a land use applicant in a dispute to recover compensatory damages, so economic loss, property damages, pain and suffering, in addition to reasonable attorney fees. As you can imagine, that could result in very large claims against both a city, and this actually allows them to make those claims against individual elected officials or city managers, things of that nature. Rob, anything you want to add on that one?
Nothing germane, but I would like to say something.
Yeah.
The Property Rights Coalition for, the past 15 years has been pushing for this. And up until current leadership took office, we were pretty well able to fend it off, but that's changing. It's pretty sombering to note that some states actually have considered imposing criminal penalties on elected officials. This wouldn't do that. It's monetary damages. I don't know where this is going to go. I know that we're pushing back really, really hard, and there's some very good public policy reasons as to why this is a bad thing. But this is the first year that it's ever really come this far.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just, you mentioned SB 273, it's HB 273.
Thank you.
House Bill.
Thank you. So we are actively working on the League's committee, that's the side committee that's working on this. We've also contacted all of our local representatives to oppose this legislation, and I can share talking points with you if it's something you guys would like to contact them about as well. I'll send those to you guys in email. So the next one that I'll mention is House Bill 265. It's the Government Records Transparency Act. We are also opposing this legislation. This legislation would require government agencies to annually report the collection, use, and disclosure of personal identifying information by the city. So this would be if you signed up for our Daddy-Daughter Princess Ball that we're having tomorrow night, and we've collected your name, your email address, and your street address. We would then have to collect that information, tell
make a document of why we were using it, and then send that on to the state auditor. It would also require us to do similar activities for every single grandma request we received and filled in the city. So as you can imagine, this is just reams and reams and reams of paper and accounting that we'd have to do at a city level. There currently is no fiscal note attached, so it hasn't moved forward, but we are watching this one very closely and we are opposing that legislation. So those are two that we're opposing. I wanted to talk about one that we're amending and one that we're watching, and then two bills that haven't been numbered that we're also working on with the league. So one of those is SB 84, which is Public Entity Water Users Amendments. This one requires a city to develop a plan for metering water use, adopt a conservation plan, submit the plan to the Division of Water, and it requires public entities be in compliance within 1 year. And if they're not in compliance at the end, so in January 21st, 2021, the city would not be eligible for any state funding or any state reimbursements. So that's a challenging one. What we're working with the league on doing is trying to amend the language in that. They feel that that is gonna probably move down the road. So we're trying to amend the language in that so it is similar to what we do with affordable housing now, where we update and submit a plan to the state every year. You probably remember that came before you guys, I think, just a month or two ago. So that's how we're working to amend that one. Another one that has been kind of a hot button issue, particularly in the law enforcement community, is House Bill 202. That's local government nuisance ordinance. In West Jordan, we are watching this one. It's a little bit more tricky in some of the other cities, but this one limits the circumstances under which a city may impose a criminal penalty for the violation of an ordinance. It also prohibits a criminal penalty unless the violation is considered a nuisance or the city has fined the same individual on 3 occasions within 12 months. The reason this is a watch for us, many of the cities are opposing it, but the reason it's a watch for us is because we've already set up our justice court, is that what we call ALJ. And so we're already dealing with those through an alternative path. The great thing is that we've been able to participate on the league committee and share some of our experiences and how our city has set it up. And many of them are looking at West Jordan kind of as a leader in this area. And it's great for us to be able to sit on a committee and kind of be a leader and showcase what we're doing in our city. So that's one that here in West Jordan we're just watching.
I believe there's a question from Councilmember
Yeah.
Jacob.
Yeah.
It's not a question, but I believe, well, you can just correct me if I'm wrong, LPC has opposed this.
Yes.
LCT is opposing this bill.
Yes, that's correct. They are opposing it, we're watching it, but it's just because we don't have the same issues other cities do because we've already implemented an alternative path. So that's where I was saying it's been kind of, it's a great opportunity for West Jordan to shine in front of other cities and say, here's how we're doing it, and then provide them contact information if they'd like to learn more and kind of line them up with the right people in our city. So another one that is not a numbered bill, but something that we're watching is there's a sunset provision in the legislation regarding B&C road funds that is related to the percentage of population in unincorporated Salt Lake County. We have passed the percentage that with Mill Creek becoming, it's Mill Creek, right? Mill Creek becoming a town, we've passed the percentage where they get the funding. So this creates a 14% funding, which would take funding away from the cities and give that money to the county for B&C road funds. So we're working with the league on coming up with an alternative proposal. Right now, we're probably looking at a hybrid that would actually provide the county with 7% of the funds and have more of the money coming back to the city, because obviously that's something we can't lose out on. We're in need of every penny we can get to keep the roads up in our city. So we're working quite closely with the league on that, and then we're really working to watch Senator Harper's omnibus transportation bill that will cover a lot of regional projects as well as a lot of road funding. Tomorrow, just kind of to give you an example of what we're talking about in these committees, we'll be meeting with representatives at the league to talk about property rights, emergency medical services, local government contracts, and stormwater legislation. So that's kind of a highlight of some of the things that we're working on, and I'm happy to take any questions about things we're experiencing up on the Hill, things that you guys would like to see us highlight more, questions on specific legislation that you might have heard of, and I'll lean on Rob and the mayor to weigh in if there's anything they'd like to add.
I have one thing. The resolution that you just approved, the Western Growth Coalition and the cities here on the west side have approved, is a direct effort to the omnibus bill to encourage the legislature to make sure that when that new bond is floated, a significant amount of that comes to take care of our transportation needs on the west side. So those two are directly related to each other.
And I might add, when we're talking to them, I'm pretending that one is already going through. So I'm pushing for them to start allocating funding to us for things like preservation for 111, for the additional lanes on there and some things like that. Also, one that she didn't mention that I wanted to bring up is one that Senator Harper is doing by removing the cap for our TODs. And as a result of that, he's not anticipating a problem with that going through, and I don't either. That'll give us an opportunity to work with UTA on this property across the street and have something going on that. So I've asked our economic development people to start looking at those plans again. You'll be seeing those real soon, because as soon as that goes there, I want to be one of the first cities to have an application into UTA on that, so we can be right in it, first in line to get some funding from them.
Councilmember Whitelock.
First, I want to thank you. Thanks for the update. It's helpful. Because our city is growing and because we have a lot of land and because we attract a lot of young families, that means there's a lot of children. The legislative body doesn't seem to have an appetite for impact fees for schools, but some of our legislators are indicating that they are working towards using money that they have in the education fund, like they do for higher ed, for buildings. I think that's something for us, while I'd prefer it be impact fees, quite frankly. Anything we can do to get money for schools in our area is probably a good thing for our residents.
Thank you, Councilmember. One of the things that we've been doing in addition to attending meetings is meeting with other representatives up on the Hill. So in the last couple of days, I think both the mayor and I have met with school board members to talk about this. There isn't a current bill that I'm aware of that has been numbered, but again, there are hundreds this year. I'm not aware of one yet, but it's something that we're in touch with them on and we're monitoring, because we are aware that that idea is being floated as well.
Senator Harper might be a contact for you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes the items that were on the regular portion of the agenda for tonight. We did have the item from the work session for the West Foothills proposed code amendment that we were not able to get to prior. If the council's open to it, we can address that now. Councilmember Whitelock.
Do we have closed session items?
We do.
I'd prefer it get brought back, personally.
Is there any downside to bringing it back at another meeting? Other than that we have lots of other things to talk about at other meetings, but besides that?
I can tell you the agenda for our next meeting is completely packed, so the first open spot would probably be on March 11th, unless we have an extra meeting. Councilmember Green, Councilmember Pack.
I just also want to respect staff who have been probably waiting to present some of this by staying. I'm just curious, how long do we anticipate for this? Because I want to also respect the comment that Councilmember Whitelock made.
Estimate 30 minutes.
Oh, 30. Oh, EST 30.
Larry's saying
10, I'm good with 10. I'm good with 10.
All right, it appears the majority would like to proceed, so we will continue with the West Foothills proposed code amendment. Larry.
Clock. Yeah. So you've had this ordinance for a couple of weeks. Do you want me to go through this presentation really quick?
Yes.
Or, okay. Oops. So what is envisioned here, there's approximately about 600 acres on the west side, in the West Foothills. It's on the, right across from the Amazon property going down towards New Bingham Highway. And so it's in an area of the city that's zoned, or on the land use map as Industrial and Business Research Park. And so what the intent is rather than segregating the uses by industrial, office, commercial, that type of thing, this would be planned as a business park. So it'd have industrial, office, retail, hospitality, commercial, and residential. So there'd be a mixture of uses over the 600 acres. And it also could be, if the council wishes to adopt this, applied to other areas of the city, at least on the west side. And so the one distinguishing characteristic of this ordinance is that there would be a set of design guidelines that would need to be adopted with each project that came in, and that would talk about landscaping, building types, the way the buildings are sited on the different parcels that are within this plan, how the roads are laid out, you know, what the offices would look like, that type of thing. The commercial, you know, there'd be right now in the industrial zone, there's a real lack of commercial in that zone. And so with a business park, it would probably open a greater opportunity for different types of commercial uses. And also with this zone, there would become the opportunity for workforce housing. And so it really would go hand in hand with the development of a work center that would be created on the west side. So I talked about that quickly. And so here's are some of the things that stand out on what the main roads would look like. I think, Rob, you can identify with this. And, you know, this is West Valley, what's it called? Lake Park Center. You go along Bangor Highway and it's a very attractive feature. That's what we'd want to present. This is more in Lake Park, and again, more there. So, you know, or outside the offices, there'd be green areas, open areas, and then that would go along with the landscape plan and the design plan of the site. There'd be strict sign requirements, so you wouldn't have different types of sign. It'd all be common in theme, you know, and so it would be landscaped and in a responsible way. There wouldn't be large swaths of sod and that water-hungry type planting. It'd be more of a xeriscape environment with trees and shrubs that could be responsibly watered. So, because the last thing we need to do on the west side is use more gallons of water on large open green areas in a business park. And so no more than 10% of the development could be in multifamily housing. And so the ordinance is written, a minimum of 30 dwelling units per acre, maximum of 60 dwelling units per acre. The hope is that people that work in the park or on the west side, Amazon, whatever, would live in close proximity, and that would help with some of the air issues in the valley. It certainly wouldn't alleviate them. I don't think that would be the case, but it would help. And then the amenity requirements for the multifamily would be similar to what is in the planned community zone already. An example of one is, in Overland Park, Kansas. on the border of Overland Park and Lenexa, Kansas. My daughter lives in Overland Park, and so I've been able to witness many of these type of business parks. You can see in the red, that's the boundary of this park. It's about 376 acres in area. And in Overland Park, I've noticed they do things in more of a business park setting rather than just strictly industrial office. They try to mix them in the uses. And you can see there's a couple of examples of office. The housing tends to be on the outside of the park. There's retail, usually at the hard corners, and those type of services. Warehousing in several different areas, and of course manufacturing. This happens to be right next to a rail spur. And so that's a primer of what this ordinance is about, and I'm would love to hear what the council's responses are to this.
Start with Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Chair. Few years ago, the current zoning in this area was put in place. We did a little task force subcommittee. Councilmember McConaughey and I were on it. From the council, we had a couple of planning commissioners on it. I believe you were advising us on it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think it was Scott and Ray, maybe, or Ray.
Yeah,
I know it was Ray,
somebody,
yeah.
somebody from staff was in there, from the planning staff. And we kind of decided on that west side zone. This was not that long ago. So is this proposal in response to an interested developer who's got their eyes on this? And
Yes.
we're trying to accommodate that?
So what it is more of a response to, the previous mayor envisioned a work center out on that west side of West Jordan. And certainly with Amazon coming in, it'll be 600 to 1,000 jobs, depending on the season. It really is going to become a employee-heavy area of the city. It will be a workforce center for probably the southwest portion of the valley,
Okay, two thoughts. One is a lot of thought went into what's there now, and I think that represented the will of the council at the time. And I don't think the will of the council has changed that much, especially when I see numbers like 30 dwelling units per acre, up to 60 dwelling units per acre. Yeah, 30 minimum. And then the second thing, as far as feedback goes, is I used to work downtown in an office building at Sinclair Oil, and their downtown office building was built with a condo complex behind it, with the idea that you can live right next door to where you work. And there's this big, 12-story condo building, and then in front of that is this 6-story office building that is the Sinclair Oil offices, and I think they're still the only ones in that building. And I can tell you, I worked there for 8 years. Not one person who worked at Sinclair lived in that condo building. Not one. So they're built with these great ideas, but people are going to live where they're going to live, and they're going to work where they're going to work.
I agree.
And they're not necessarily going to live next door to where they work. These are going to be high-density apartments. People that are going to move there are going to be young families who can't afford to live anywhere else. And, well, yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
I don't think they'll necessarily be low-rent apartments. I don't envision that, particularly with that density. But, I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you don't like the multifamily housing, throw that out. But don't throw the whole business park idea out.
Well, how is the business park without that different from the research park zone that we've already got out there? It's
Research Park allows office. So it's about 500 acres of office, so.
Okay, and then the next question would be, what could we do? Could we do a performance-based something instead of this, so that there's A, more latitude, B, we get a better product? Same sales pitch as we've been using for the product north of here.
Performance.
A performance-based zone, where it's all based on performance and design, and what were the other words that kept getting thrown around?
What would they get for that performance?
No, I mean, could we accomplish the same kind of things that you're talking about here with that performance-based zoning idea that we've already talked about briefly for the Woods property?
And are you talking about for the resident? Because
I'm talking about
either a
for the-
use is allowed or not. I don't know how a performance base would work with a use. I'm not following where you, because every performance-based zone is usually tied to a density allocation for a better design or something like that, so.
So the way and maybe I misunderstood this, and maybe this should be in here too. Oh, there's 10 minutes, by the way. I take full responsibility for going past the 10 minutes. The way I understand the performance base is it basically throws all the code out and you submit something that's really cool and
You
we'll
mean a
decide if
form
we like it.
base?
The form base, sorry,
Form
I
base.
said performance.
Oh, sure,
Sorry,
we could do
form-based.
that.
Yeah, so a form-based thing, we throw the code out and say, give us your best shot and we'll see if we like it or not.
The only difference in a form base is I think that you get a lot of planning work and a lot of design work up front. And so there's very few, quite frankly, looking at this site right now is like a 1 million square foot building. I don't know if they're going to necessarily go through that exercise, and maybe you don't want them to go through that exercise. That's my only caution. Now, I can do that if that's the council's will with this ordinance, but I'd have to research, because that's a far different animal than what you're looking at tonight, so.
I'll leave my comments there for now. So far, I'm not catching the vision.
Councilmember Green.
I agree with Councilmember Jacob. I had to stop and think. His name's Zach, and I was like, that didn't work. 30 to 60 units per acre on 10% of the property is a no-go for me. I mean, we're talking about putting 3,600 units in a tenth of a square mile area, which makes the density 7 times greater than Chicago. I do know those numbers. Chicago's is about 11,000, by the way. Density, and if we put that many units in that area, I think we don't have the infrastructure out there. We don't have anything ready for that. Honestly, I think that we've already made a bunch of decisions on where high density ought to be. We've decided that the interchange overlay zone is high density. We've got the TODs that's high density. If somebody wants to put 60 units in per acre, I'd say go across the street. But out there, I'm not sure that I want to go 60 units an acre in those foothills. That there's got to be a better plan. Here's my cynical side of me. Somebody gets a rezone into this property, they will immediately jump on to the multifamily housing because that's where they can make money. And 3,600 units will take 6, 7, 8 years to build based on the way we've seen some stuff being built lately. At the end of this 6 or 7 or 8 years, the developer's gonna come back and throw up their hands and say, we couldn't do commercial. We couldn't do business. We can't do retail or warehousing or offices, contrary to what's happening all across the valley, but they're gonna tell us that anyway, and and then they're gonna say, but look, the only thing that'll fit now is the multifamily housing that we've thrown in there to make it compatible, and I'm not willing to go down that road. So as long as this has got a high density multifamily unit in it, I can't support it because I just think there's too many developers that come in and will say, well, they'll say, hey, yeah, I'll design it, and then they'll throw up their hands because that developer may not be a commercial or a commercial developer. All they do is build homes, and they'll build apartments up as many as they want, and then we're stuck with all these apartments and no commercial, and then it doesn't help us at all when it comes to the tax revenue. So that's my 15 cents worth.
Councilmember Whitelock.
I would like to say amen to Councilmember Green. I will not say yes to an industrial, commercial with residential in it. That is a total no-go for me, and the numbers that you're saying per acre are ridiculous. Density does not equate affordability, and we just can't do that. Now, but then I go down to the list that you provided, and I would like to add some extra things to it. Perhaps amusement parks. I think this part of the valley could have an amusement park that could do very well. Museums, universities. I think your list could be increased, but for me, as has been mentioned by others, I'm a no-go for residential in there. All around there, there's already residential. This isn't in the middle of nowhere. So there's plenty of places for people to live close by. And there isn't really the infrastructure, the mass transit, nor is it planned for that area for that high of density.
Councilmember Worthen.
I like the idea of the industrial, but again, no residential. I mean, there's so much residential. If you go along Mountain View right now, the apartments and everything that are being built, there's plenty of places. If people are working out there, have a place to live. I like the idea of putting in some of the places to eat, because when you work, my home office is out in Lake Park, and it's nice to have places that are just on 56 that are close to eat. So, but I couldn't even imagine an apartment complex being in the middle of all that. So I sure as heck wouldn't live there. So I'm with several of my other members up here, no residential.
Councilmember Jacob.
Really quick, some of this is zoned for residential out there, but it's low density because this is foothills. This is prime property. If you're gonna build that really nice estate lot place, this is where you do it. So there's a lot of low density already zoned out in this southwest area, and it needs to stay that way.
So my vision for this doesn't quite match with what's been thrown out. And let me try and paint the picture. As I look at the foothills off on that west side of the valley, it seems like we have an opportunity similar to what they've done up by the University of Utah, by Research Park, as you're going up kind of by, as you're kind of up by the zoo, or this is the Place State Park, or up over there. And I'm picturing a place where we can have some of those nicer offices right up on this west side of the valley. If we could get a company like REI or Outback or like Skull Candy settled up in Summit County, something like that up on the west side of the valley that overlooks the entire valley, I want to make sure that we have that office component. All the other cities around us have some pretty nice office parks. As you're driving down 70th South, you'll see right down by the river, you've got a pretty nice office complex. As you're going into South Jordan, right off of 104th, 106th, kind of by Mulligan's, you've got this nice office complex. We don't have anything like that here in West Jordan yet, and I'd like to see that. And I could absolutely see a residential component tied to that. I mean, as you're driving by 215 around Knutson's Corner, you've got those office buildings right there, you've got a bunch of restaurants, and then you do have a fair amount of residential that's tied into it. So I see where that has its place. It's an understatement to say I balk at the idea of 60 units per acre. But my vision is to see what we can do to bring some sort of cohesive plan like this together. I don't see industrial as being the primary driver, nor residential. I'd like to see these other elements, and not just retail, but destination retail. I know we're having a lot of issue nationally with malls because people are just buying more online, but we still have a need for that destination retail. You're seeing a lot of malls kind of transform, and they may be losing shops like Macy's, but now they're bringing in Planet Fitness, and then they're bringing in different restaurants, and some of them are bringing in apartment complexes next to those, so you've got people that are within walking distance from these amenities. And rather than having to watch some of these other more aged cities redevelop, we have an opportunity to try and do this from the ground up. So I'm open to the idea of modifying what's out there. And as you were speaking, I recognize that we do have some shortcomings in this research park zone because it doesn't give the flexibility for a truly usable, multifaceted community. But I worry that what we have in front of us isn't going to get us to that vision that I have in my mind, where this west bench becomes sort of like the pinnacle of development in the Salt Lake Valley, these pristine foothills that we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to develop, and I don't want to screw that up. So that's my thought. Any other comments from the council? Is there any further direction or comment that was needed from us on this one?
Loud and clear.
Councilmember Green.
I move that we go to closed session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
Second.
And adjourn from there?
And adjourn from there.
I'll second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Green, a second from Councilmember Worth, and a quick point of clarification for Mr. Bricky. Does that cover everything we needed for the closed session tonight?
That is correct. There is no personnel matter or property that will be discussed.
Then let's vote. Drumroll.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Pack,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitelock,
Yes, but we didn't do remarks.
We skipped them all.
So I'm going to do remarks right this second, and I'm going to thank you, Justin, for the time that you've worked for our city and served for our city. Best wishes on your new adventures.
Councilmember Worthen,
Yes, and good luck, Justin.
Councilmember Green.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.